everyone. I'm going to call the Board of Supervisors to order. Miss Warren, may I have a roll call, please?
Supervisor Giomi.
Here.
Supervisor White. Here. Supervisor Jones. Supervisor Sheedy.
Here.
Mayor Bagwell.
Here.
A quorum's present.
Thank you so much. We're going to move to agenda item number 3, which is time for our invocation. And is Garvin here with, coming over there. Didn't see you with Living Stones. Good morning. Please push the button so it turns green. There you go. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
The scriptures say this: let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish the work of our hands. Yes, establish the work of our hands. Father, we pray for your favor and your grace on this meeting, on the Board of Supervisors, on all of the employees of our city, and for Carson City, that you would give us your favor and that you would give us your grace. That today, in every decision that is made, that you would be the author not of confusion but peace, that you would calm minds and hearts, that you would give clarity of mind and action, and that you would be in every decision so that our city would thrive and flourish. There are many things going on today, many decisions that are being made, many plans that are being executed. And as the man makes plans, so God directs our steps. So we pray that you would establish the work of our hands, and that we would see in every decision the prosperity of our city and the flourishing of every citizen in Carson City. Be with us all now. I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you so much for that great prayer. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to our Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Wood, would you do us the honor of leading us? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. Okay, we're now on to agenda item number 5, which is our first public comment period. Do I have any public comment? I see that Mr. French has signed up. Okay, you have the timer though? Okay, you can just let us know. Thank you. Go ahead.
Supervisor and mayor and boards, staff, sorry. Anyhow, Denny French, Carson City, Nevada, and I'm here today for all sorts of reasons, as I always am. The first one I want people to understand is I come to these meetings because I cherish the opportunity as a person in this community to watch the process that keeps us rolling. And the people that you're seeing, the supervisors, the mayor, are all part of that. As we may be different on specific points and have different opinions, it's the working together that counts. Today, having an opportunity to appreciate the employees as a past city worker myself, I think it's great. We had a crew of 5 in Carpinteria that took care of the area, and that meant a lot of different types of opportunity for me as far as work. But today, this is a huge agenda. It's massive. I was up until 4 this morning just reviewing notes, and it all came down to one thing, that we have rights. We voted you in. Elections are important, and I feel we made a misstep as a community not to have honored the findings of a 2017 election, that the people voted no on marijuana. It went now to where we are, and we can't backtrack, but we can go forward, remembering that the vote of an election, of a ballot form, is not just our voices, but it's our taking advantage of the process that we have as the democratic country. The state gave us the right to have that vote specifically on that item as a city, and we, unlike a lot of the other cities, chose no. Again, we are where we are, and to move forward, I'd like to suggest for myself that it's part of the process is having this conversation, and I'm so pleased that we're having it today. And I hope that people will feel free to come out and participate and not get discouraged with the process, because process is so important to all of us to have this country, this state, this city working and keeping our side of things up. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I wish you a good meeting.
I don't have anyone else signed up, but it's just one last call. Is there any other general public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 6, which is approval of our minutes of August 18th, 2022. Does anyone have any corrections? Ms. Schutte?
I actually just have one, and I just found it. So on page 19, it's just it needs a capital W for white on the approved.
Oh, in the A's?
Correct. You're welcome, sir. And sorry, and I forgot to tell you prior.
Oh,
Perfect. Okay, I'll accept a motion for approval of the minutes as corrected.
I move to approve the Carson City Board of Supervisors meeting, the minutes of the Carson City Board of Supervisors meeting for August 18th, 2022, with the correction of a big W instead of a little w.
I
Supervisor
second it.
White.
I have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes of August 18th, 2022, with the correction in the capitalization of Mr. White's name. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we're now on to one of our favorite things to do is, and thank you, Denny, for that, but 7A on our agenda is where we do length of service certificates for our employees. And then we will have the recognition for Constitution Day. So if the board members can join me on the floor, that would be great. What do I got for us today? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Okay.
Just
He did?
yeah.
Well, you know, you can just come up early if you want. I love it. He is ready for his certificate.
Here.
You can help us out today. Well, go ahead.
Okay.
You can start with the first one.
Okay, I get to start with Dan Caston. So Dan, you want to come up? All right. Bear with me because someone wrote a novel here about Dan. So before Dan Castens was hired as a sports field coordinator for Parks, Recreation, and Open Space, 10 years ago, he was part of the Arizona Diamondbacks AAA Crown Crew, maintaining Aces Stadium in Reno. During his time at the Aces Stadium, the Ground Crew was awarded the AAA Field of the Year, and I happened to have season tickets when Dan was there, and the field was amazing. It was amazing. So Dan has brought his hard work ethic and sports field maintenance experience to the attention to detail to the maintenance team. After serving as a sports field coordinator, he was promoted to the current position of Parks Operations Manager. Upon his promotion, Dan had an immediate impact on the Parks Department maintenance team. He provided much-needed leadership and maintenance experience. He was soon well-respected amongst his peers, and they enjoy his leadership skills, knowledge, and his sense of humor. Often, Dan jumps right in and works side by side with his team. He's been a tremendous teacher, leader, advocate for the Parks Department, and he brings a lot of passion and compassion to the department every day, and that's evident through his employees and work habits. As a lifelong Nevada resident, Dan is very knowledgeable about the area and the history. In his spare time, he enjoys bird hunting, camping, and an occasional round of golf. And Dan has served the city for 10 years. And a side note, his father was the Parks Director back in, when did he retire? 80-something? No. Really? Holy mackerel. So, so he's carrying on his father's footsteps. So congratulations on 10 years, Dan.
Renee? Where is Renee? Detention Shift Supervisor. Renee was hired at Carson City Juvenile Detention on September 4, 2012, and was promoted to Shift Supervisor November of 2015. Renee is a complete and total asset to the Carson City Juvenile Services team. Renee is truly a jack of all trades. She's their in-house IT technician, building maintenance, and equipment repair person. In-house counselor of kids and staff alike. I could use some of that out at the prison. Renee is a person that stays at work until the job is complete. She prides herself on making the detention center a home-like environment for all. Renee's passion for the job is apparent with her day in and day out commitment to changing the lives of juveniles in our center. Renee's job is a very close second to her son Nick and her grandson Micah, whom Renee shares stories about daily. Carson City Juvenile Services is proud to call Renee their co-worker and friend. Thank you.
Terry Swanson. Terry is an exceptional employee and provides excellent service to the community. He is an expert in the field of concrete and has 48 years of experience. The knowledge, skill, and professionalism he brings to Public Works is appreciated. Terry is a great guy, always there when he's needed. Public Works is proud to have him on his team. Thank you, Terry.
And Gary Wood. Yay! That's right. Street Technician 3. So Gary does a great job and is a tremendous asset to Public Works. He's trained and certified as a Nevada Restricted Use Pesticide Applicator, as well as an ISA certified arborist. He's dependable, has a great attitude, and is an all-around great guy. Yay, congrats.
All right, so now wait a minute. Casey, it's your turn. All right, Fire Prevention Inspector, and I'm gonna embarrass Sean or something because, yay, he's a fire inspector too. Get up here and say something nice and about the great work that he does, because I know it's more than just being an inspector. Or I'll do my canned one. He only has 5 years, so you know one of the requirements, right? If you get a certificate for 5 years, what do you got to guarantee to do? 20 more. Thank you. You guys are catching on.
So as a fire inspector 2 with us, Casey has a very difficult job of getting the public to the safe side, sometimes at a cost to them. And he does that with compassion, with very well spoken, and gets them to yes very easily. And he is an absolute benefit to us, and he definitely puts the customer first and takes care of us. And we really appreciate Casey's service. So congratulations, Case.
Let's take her a picture. And now we'll do a picture. Yeah, and does that mean we're gonna, I see some hat colors there and some vest colors there. Yeah, come on, let's get in, let's do it. Yeah, let's get it. I'm like, wow. You know what? It's good to celebrate though. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, come on in, come on in. This is wonderful. Oh my gosh. How fantastic. I think it's wonderful to show that
Stand tall.
taxpayers. This is your hard-working team. And check this out, right? These are the people out there every day in the trenches, working hard for all of you. So I'm pretty darn proud. Got that picture, they did a great job.
John, just stay up there, I'll trade you.
Okay. I'll be here soon.
That makes you guys visible. Although I did see a game this weekend, they were wearing that Monday Night Football. Yeah. It was pretty bad to see. Yeah, what the color I'm talking about is Seattle Seahawks. They wear that color. Uniform. You guys? I would like to. So the next thing we're going to do is another wonderful thing, which is a proclamation on our Constitution Day. I can see in the audience the members of the DAR. That I know this is pretty important, so if you'd like to come up, we'll love to present this to you, and we'll all sign it. But it's certainly, come on. I recognize you can't get away. You're not going to get away with it because I recognize you. That's right. Really honored to serve with these women to really celebrate our Constitution. She wants pictures. She's arranging the pictures. That's an important thing. So come on up. All right. Just right there, next to Stacy. Okay, so I might need glasses. It's getting harder. It's really getting harder. I need bigger print or something, or longer arms. Whereas the United States Constitution consists of 4,400 words and is the oldest and shortest written constitution of any major government in the world. And whereas, according to John Adams, the U.S. Constitution constitutes the greatest single effort of national deliberation that the world has ever seen. And whereas, in the words of Albert Einstein, the strength of the Constitution lies entirely in the determination of each citizen to defend it. Whereas, on May 25th, 1787, our founders convened in Philadelphia to begin work on a new U.S. Constitution. And whereas, on December 8, 2004, President George W. Bush signed Public Law 108447, declaring September 17 to be Constitution Day and U.S. Citizenship Day of the week following would be Constitution Week. Whereas Constitution Day, together with Independence Day, affords all Americans the chance to learn about their nation's founding and its governing principles, which are an important and unifying part of their cultural heritage as citizens. Whereas Constitution Day recognizes the importance of the American experiment and the blessings that accrue to a nation of free people whose rights and liberties are safeguarded by a written constitution. Now, therefore, I, Lori Bagwell, Mayor of Carson City, Nevada, and the Board of Supervisors do hereby recognize September 17, 2022 as United States Constitution Day and reaffirms its commitment to support the rights and privileges of its citizens under the U.S. Constitution, which for 235 years has been the guiding force behind the most enduring democratic system of government in the world. Dated this 15th day of September 2022. Pretty important. And thank you, Denny, for just mentioning this morning about the importance of public comment and seeing how your government works. It really fits into the celebration of Constitution Day, right? Everyone really has that right. So I'm super excited today to have some other members of the DAR Battleborn chapter group with us today. It's really a tenet that the Daughters of the American Revolution hold for Constitution Day. So I'm happy to be able to present with my fellow board members this proclamation. They get points, you know, for this on their on their master questionnaires and things to get points. So I'm super happy to do that. What we're going to do is take the picture and everything first, but then we'll have each member sign it so that you have an original document. You absolutely, we do a display at the library for Constitution Week and stuff. So we'll be happy to have this on display. Thank you, Susie. That's a great idea. So why don't we take a picture and then we'll. She's the current chief of that group, Battleborn. Stephen's doing great on this. And then just because it's Constitution and it's so important to me, and I think to each and every member of this board, you are welcome to join us in this celebration. It's just wonderful to celebrate this. All right, we'll make it legal. If you don't take a picture, it didn't happen. That's my fault. Oh, that was yours. Okay, let's have a signature. And I do have the. It just has right here. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, it's gone forever. I know. Thank you guys for coming. I know, sure. Well. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you. And the exhibit is in the entryway of the library.
Cool.
On the display until the end of the month. Nice. So the week is actually 17th to the 24th, Constitution Week.
Very good.
Yeah. Cool.
Everything is in the Bill of Rights.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you all very much. What a great start to our day. We're now going to move on to our consent agenda. Does any member of the public or member of the board want an item pulled from consent for discussion? That's Mr. Jones, were you interested in discussing or you're good? We'll pull for discussion item 11B. So with that, I'll accept a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda consisting of item 8A, 9A, 10A, 11A, 11C, 11D, 11E, 12A, and 13A as presented.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. We're now going to move to agenda item 11B. This is for discussion and possible action regarding the authorization to purchase various equipment for the Carson City Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. Mr. Navarro, are you going to talk a little bit about this one?
Yes, this is Dave Navarro, Parks Operations Superintendent. Also, I have up here Lindsay Boyer, because I think the two pieces of equipment in question are being ordered or want to be ordered for the open space, and that's the majority is going to be used there. But these, I was at the board meeting last month and was asked to bring these items back, so we did, and provide a little bit more explanation on their, like, the use and what they're going to be used for. Just wanted, the only thing that I would like to add is, like, when the Parks Department about 5 years ago created our equipment replacement, plan, and up to that point, we really didn't have one. So when we did, obviously we looked at our current equipment, but then at the same time, we also looked at future equipment that we currently didn't have, but we knew that was an important need in the future. And one of those things was like the Mini X. And that was, and we actually slated that in like 2 fiscal cycles ago, and we just brought it forward to this one. And so, and when we look at adding new equipment to the fleet, we look at it because of our staffing levels. It's something that a single employee can take with them and do multiple things. And this is what that is. Like, we can have an employee hook up a trailer to his truck, put this piece of equipment, like the Mini X, in the back of his truck, go out and perform multiple tasks, as opposed to having multiple employees there performing that task. So it's something that helps with the operation, not necessarily like with the maintenance. It's not like a mower that is used on a consistent basis, but it's one of those pieces of equipment now that, and a perfect example is for the Parks Department, and like Lindsay's here and she can provide more input on open space, but for the Parks Department, like we had a series of mainline irrigation leaks at one of our parks, and when we dig those up, we got to dig like 20 feet long, 3 feet deep, and it takes like 2 or 3 guys most of the day just to dig that hole, and then we had to repair it, then we had to backfill it. If we had the Mini X, it would have took a matter of hours. Again, single person could have operated that piece of equipment, made the repair at the same time, and then filled everything up, as opposed to having multiple. So that's the only thing that I want to add on that. So, Lindsay.
Ms. Boyer?
Thank you for that, Dave. For the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager. So I'll speak to the Mini X first, since that's what we were talking about. As Dave mentioned, this is a super versatile piece of equipment that would be used to complete a variety of maintenance projects throughout both parks and open space. Currently, we don't have a piece of equipment that's capable of doing a lot of these projects, so we are forced to contract these services out. Examples of projects include trailhead, and dirt road maintenance throughout open space, irrigation repair and maintenance of the Mexican ditch, and the irrigation ditches at Silver Saddle Ranch and Buzzy's Ranch, as well as the removal of beaver dams. This piece of equipment has a smaller footprint and is more maneuverable than, say, a backhoe, which we do own, so it reduces impacts to the land and natural resources while we're doing those projects. It would also be used to maintain over 70 newly installed drainage features out at the Prison Hill OHV area. It would reduce the annual cost for maintaining Ash Canyon and Kings Canyon Road, which currently our department is responsible for. As Dave mentioned, it would help with emergency irrigation repairs in parks. And it would also serve as a backup piece of equipment for Lone Mountain Cemetery if the backhoe is down or needs to be maintained. It does come with a variety of attachments like a bulldozing blade and buckets for digging and grading. So right now, as I mentioned, we don't have a piece of equipment that enables us to do any of these things. So we are forced to contract all of those services out, which can get quite expensive. For example, we had a project where we had to remove dredged material that came out of the Mexican ditch that was along the Mexican ditch trail and the river. And that project alone cost $10,000 to contract out. So it can be very expensive to contract these services. Supervisor Jones did ask about the potential for renting this equipment. So I do have some numbers there. So a 6,000-pound Mini X is available through United Rentals. There are monthly, weekly, and daily rates. The monthly rate is about $1,700 a month. The weekly rate is $720 per week, and per day it's about $260. They did indicate that they need at least 1 to 2 weeks lead time, if not more. So for some of these more emergent repairs, that wouldn't be a great option for us. In addition to the Mini X, we've also been talking about the Bobcat, which is a replacement for our current Toolcat, which was purchased in 2007 and is up for repair. It's been used for the last 15 years. This is a super vital piece of equipment. It's used daily throughout open space and parks. We use it to install signs, fences, benches. We use it to repair our fences. It's used for spraying noxious and invasive weeds, snow plowing, and just general maintenance activities at Silver Saddle Ranch and throughout open space. It does come with a variety of attachments as well, including a box blade, brush mower, bucket, snow plow, auger, all kinds of things. So right now, given its age and just how much it's been used, it is starting to see, more maintenance and repair costs, and we don't have an option of letting this piece of equipment go down for any amount of time because we are using it daily. So I do have our open space maintenance coordinator here if you have any specific questions about how these pieces of equipment can be used. But with that, I would take any questions.
Does any member have a question? Supervisor Jones?
I really question if you're using that, what was the first piece of equipment?
The Mini X?
Yeah. Are you using that daily, weekly, monthly, or what?
Currently, we don't own that piece of equipment, so we're not able to speak to how often it would be used because we don't own it. But as I mentioned, we are responsible for completing all of those tasks, and right now we would have to contract all of those services out. So
Or lease. Remember, you can lease these, right?
there are monthly, weekly, and daily
I
rates
understand that.
available.
I understand that. My issue is we're contracting more and more of parks work out. And I don't know if you can justify both of these pieces of equipment. I really don't.
So I think a lot of the contracting work that you're speaking to that Parks is doing, like maintaining some of these right-of-way areas and things like that, that's completely separate from the projects that I'm, discussing. They're very specific to open space and open space maintenance. So they're different things. And right now we are forced to contract all these services out, which is really expensive. And if we had this piece of equipment, we have a very capable operator. We could do all of these things in-house, which would reduce our current contracting costs.
You're not being forced to contract. You can still lease, remember, right? I understand you have to do some advance notification, work coordination.
So yeah, leasing is an option. Unfortunately, a lot of these projects aren't occurring all at the same time. They occur through different parts of the year. So, even that monthly rate wouldn't really work. We can't stack projects because some occur in the fall, some occur in the summer. And then for anything that's emergent, like that example of the dredged material that was along the ditch and the trail, we didn't have the opportunity to wait 1 to 2 weeks for that piece of equipment to become available.
How often does that happen?
Dredging of the maintenance ditch or the Mexican ditch occurs annually.
So what was the monthly rate on the Mini X?
The monthly rate is about $1,700 per month. But as I mentioned, we can't often stack up all of our projects in a month's time.
I get that. I'm gonna try and go a different tactic
sure.
here. I'm looking at the purchase here for, if I'm not mistaken, it's $62,801.
62.
So what I want to talk about is what is the estimated hours of usage, or, you know, what is the life expectancy of the piece of equipment if we were to purchase this 62,000? I'm trying to look at the rate of return on a piece of equipment.
Sure. That's a great question. I mean, the hard part about this is that we've never had this piece of equipment before, so it's really hard to calculate just how much it might be used in terms of hours. We can calculate in terms of, you know, the number of projects that we have, which probably equates to, you know, several weeks each quarter for different types of projects.
20 years. How about I try it a different way? The manufacturer probably recommends or suggests that this piece of equipment has a useful life of 20 years, 10,000 hours. I know some of these are by hours, so that we purchase a lot of stuff in the Public Works Department too, and so we look at hours or we look at years. So I'm just trying to get the value of the purchase versus, is it more cost effective and wise to just allow you to say lease every month, because at 1,700, how many months to be able to pay this off? So you see where I'm going with this. Is it more advantageous for you to lease one, because that's better, and you'd have it to do all the work that you want to do, because you just lease it month to month to month to month, versus the purchase?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, if I may, I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, we're talking, you know, I think we got talking about like rental versus like leases are kind of, you know, like two different things. Like, yeah, we can lease and do like a monthly payment, but there's also like there's also like an additional like charge that would be on that, like monthly charge. Don't know what that is, you know, because we have never leased like equipment like before. So we've only either purchased it outright or we've only, let's see, rented it for like short periods of time. I have talked to like some of the manufacturers where we purchase our mowers from, and all of those have lease programs. But again, you know, they break it up, but then there's always like an interest rate that is added like to that. So in the end, it's just like leasing a car, basically. So, and then to answer your question, like how long, like, you know, what's the life expectancy? The only thing that we can really compare this to, because again, it's nothing that we've ever had, would be like a backhoe, and backhoes are typically 15 like to 20 years, and it's, you know, that's all like dependent on like use or, you know, things like that. So it's not something that is going to be like, we're going to come back in like 5 years and say, hey, we need to replace it. And, you know, it's something that's, you know, probably we're looking at like a 15, that's like a 20-year on this piece of equipment.
Yeah, you see where I'm going here. I'm trying to determine which is the better avenue for the public money, right? Is it better? So if I spend this 63,000 and that gets me 15 years, the other way I only get 10 years for the same amount of dollars. Plus, I'm gonna guess inside of a lease, there's a whole bunch more little technical things we might not like. Yeah, right, there's gonna be a lot of other little, right,
Yep.
lease fees. There's gonna be a lot of other things. And so for me, I think as far as staff having the ability to utilize the item, doesn't matter whether it's a leased piece of equipment or it's one that we own. It's just the piece of equipment that's available to you. So which is the more cost beneficial? And unless I'm missing something here, it sounds like the purchase is more beneficial to the taxpayer in the long run on the piece of equipment. And that's what I want to make sure. I think all of us here, right, are interested in protecting all the assets and the expenditure. And so one way I get 10 years, the other way I get 15. Do we have any warranty on the equipment?
Yeah, they typically do have warranties. Like I said, don't know what those are, but and depending on like what it is, if it's like the motor, like components, yes, like there always is like warranties when it comes to those.
$1,700 a month for 10 years is $204,000.
That's what I said. We're far better off with
Right.
purchase. So I just want to, right? And that's to me what's important in the exercise here. It's apparent that you're going to utilize the equipment. How often, Mr. Jones might be completely correct, but when you look at it, it's far more prudent to purchase it than to lease it.
Oftentimes, a lease puts you in restricted hours because they want to be able to sell that machine when you're done with it.
Oh, yeah, that too. So, okay. Any more questions? Supervisor Giomi?
Yeah, my comment, I guess, is just this, David said that this mini excavator, because I think in my mind, there's absolutely no question on the Bobcat, because we've used the heck out of the one we have. And I know that Parks is responsible for snow removal of basically city facilities. I know that Parks was responsible for snow removal at fire stations. And so, I mean, I don't, in my mind, there's no question on that. So that brings up the mini excavator. And I guess, given the fact that looking at the staffing in the Parks Department now versus the staffing in the Parks Department when we really had to cut back in the late 2000s, the staffing is not anywhere near the same. And so if we have a piece of equipment that we can buy for under $100,000 that can do the job of two people in a department that's already understaffed, it's in my mind, it's a no-brainer. So I'm willing to support it.
Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none. All right, I'll accept a motion.
I move to approve the purchase authority as requested.
I second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Let the record reflect Supervisor Jones voted no. Thank you.
Great.
Bring us back
Thank
a
you.
report in a year or two about all the great things you did with the mini
Thank you.
excavator.
Thank
Okay.
you. Will do.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see, we're now gonna move to agenda item 15A, which is the discussion and possible action regarding the proposed notice for letters of intent for the American Rescue Plan Act funding. This is a item that we requested come back just so that we could see it before release based on our prior meeting. So, Ms. Russell.
Good morning, Sherry
Good morning.
Russell, CFO for the record. Mariana Gavrich is on vacation, so I offered to bring this forward for her, a much-deserved vacation. So, as we said on our August 18th meeting, we would bring this back before you to discuss the letter of intent before we submitted it for publication, to get your feedback. And so what is presented is what Mariana, myself, the city manager, and the mayor all came up with. So please give us your comments. Let us know if this is in the correct direction. There's also a list of available funding sources, which Nancy will talk about.
The late material.
The
that
late
was,
material, yes.
Put together. So I see hands raised. Supervisor Giomi?
So, for me, I guess I just want to talk about, I understand that we're just sort of soliciting letters of intent here. And so I guess by necessity, the letter of intent and the phases and the descriptions are probably purposely at a very high level. Is that a fair statement? So
Yes.
Okay. So, I guess I just want to make sure that we will, let me ask you this. What I want to make sure we have an opportunity to be a little more specific and drill down a little more on what our expectations are. Because I want to make sure we have very clear goals that we are asking the vendors who submit this to hit, whether it be, reaching 100% of the homeless population. That's probably an unrealistic number, but whatever the case may be, we can talk about goals, and I think reporting back needs to be in there very clearly. And I think for me, reporting back more on the front end because it's such a new project and there's so much interest in it. So,
Well, and I
So I wanted you to
completely
talk a little bit
understand.
about
I
that.
completely understand. So the way the housing plan is, it's slightly vague. I mean, we're doing pods or we're doing houses or we're not sure what the public can offer right now.
right.
So the letter of intent is just like, we have all this money. What can the public do to help us? What can our nonprofits do to help us? And then once we get those notice of intents, we'll sit down with our group and say, okay, do these fit the goals? Do we want to ask them for an application? The application will give us more detail about what they're willing to do.
So I guess, so do you see it as them telling us what goals they can reach or us telling them what goals we want?
I think it's going to be a dual effort because, we're offering this money and they're going to provide us services. So they have to tell us what they can provide and we can tell them what we want, of course, but it's going to be a joint effort.
So once we get back, you made a comment about nonprofits. So the first comment I wanted to make is we're not restricting it to only nonprofits.
No.
though.
That was
Okay.
just an
So
example.
I just want to make that clear.
Yes.
So let's say we get 3 people who come back to us as a response to this. You're saying we can then pick one of those and sit down with them, or pick all 3 and sit down with them and discuss it? Or
I think if all of the 3 fit the goal of the health housing plan, we can get an application from them and see what they have. And then the group will sit down and say, okay, which one do we want to pick to move forward? Because
all
we
3.
can't pick pods and houses
Right,
and
right,
we
right,
can't do
right.
all 3.
so the committee would have some input into that, and we would have input then into that.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I guess from a contracting perspective, I don't see Carol here, but from a contracting perspective, that's within the law.
We are in essence doing like an RFP, a request for
Or an
proposal.
RFQ, really,
Yeah.
for request for
Proposal
qualifications.
qualifications, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, given that, given the discussion we had last time, I'm in support of it. I just wanted to hear that there was going to be a way for us to make sure we can, set those goals and have input on what those goals look like.
Yeah,
Thank you.
of course.
I think you'd see I don't know, most of all of our like CDBG, CSSG. So I'm envisioning, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think along with what Supervisor Giomi's indicating, we generally put a deliverable, you're gonna report quarterly, you're gonna
Oh,
hit these
yes.
benchmarks.
Absolutely.
Right.
So I think that's what we're after, all of us are
I
after
guess,
here.
and I
Yeah.
guess much like CDBG, they're kind of telling us how they're going to solve the problem. We say, here's the problem.
Right.
And I guess I just was trying to wrap my head around that. It's a lot of money.
Yes.
It's a lot of federal money. I get that. It's not all of our citizens' money, but in reality it is.
Right.
And I want to make sure that there's enough safeguards in there that we're getting what we think we're getting and what we think will solve is a bad word. What we think will help the situation. I'm
And we do have a
comfortable.
limited
I'm
amount of
comfortable.
time to spend this money.
Right,
So
no, right.
Mariana
right.
is very good about
Yeah.
staying on top of the applicants and making sure they're getting their information in and they're submitting their request timely and they're staying on track.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I'm good with the comments. Thanks.
Supervisor White.
Thank you. I'd like to talk about some of the things within the letter of intent, specifically on page 242. In phase 1, it says applicants can apply for funding up to $90,000. I'm curious where that dollar amount came from, because this board, if you go to page 245 on panel 5, this board voted on $88,000. Curious, how did we get to 90?
I rounded. I mean, this is all open for discussion. If you guys want to put $100,000 in that first, the first survive area, we can do that. It's all open for discussion. I mean, I'll take the blame. I rounded. I thought 88 looked weird when all the other numbers were rounded.
It might only come in
Yeah.
at 60. We
Yeah,
don't know what we're gonna
but-
get bids
But
on.
this board voted on 88, but now this document says 90. That's what you call project creep. Phase 2 in stabilize, length of stay approximately 180 days. What is that? Could it be 200? What is approximately 180 days?
I mean, 6 months, yeah.
Well,
So,
Again,
so we're saying 6 months,
ag-
or do we want to let
again-
it go a year? Again, this is all open for discussion today.
Wait and see.
again, if you go to page 248, this board voted very specifically on a maximum of 180 days. How do we now have approximately 180 days here?
We work at the direction of this board. If this board wants to make it a maximum of 180 days, we will gladly make it a maximum of 180 days.
This is what I'm getting at. This board has already directed a maximum of 180 days.
Oh, he's not done, sorry.
In the project description, you're asking the applicant to provide a brief budget. I think for north of $1 million, we need to have a very specific budget.
Again, this is for the letter of intent, so this is just saying that they are going to apply. This is not the application. The application does require a detailed budget.
Well, I'm not willing to spend north of $1 million on a brief budget. Secondarily, as I expressed the last time we talked about this, it may well be legal, but I'm also not willing to spend money from the Indigent Accident Fund on this project. So that's where I'm at on this.
Supervisor Shooty?
Thank you. Having been on this committee, and I appreciate your comments, the difficulty in this whole situation is that there isn't A, a one-size-fits-all, B, everybody, or a common pattern of needs and length of time. And so going through the PowerPoint that was presented, so on page 245, the projected cost. So the word projected, it wasn't determined cost, it's projected. And this was looking at the timeline that it would take to help make this happen. Again, the objective and the spirit of this project is to meet the needs of this community, in that we're hearing and realizing that there is a problem with homelessness, and there's a problem with people living on the streets, and for many different reasons, and we discussed that as well last time. And so this is that way to help address the issue in a responsible way that ultimately saves tax dollars. These are folks that will use resources when they need resources, and if they don't have access to a wraparound plan, they'll immediately go to the highest cost. So that is ultimately what this is about. So the maximum, yeah, whether it's maximum, approximately, whatever the wording is, but again, there is not that one size fits all. And there will be people who will only need services for 2 months, only need services for 4 months. And so it's that in general, up to or approximately the 6 months. And so from somebody who worked on it, the spirit of this is to address an issue in a way that isn't just about, this is terrible, we don't want them, we don't, we're worried about these folks, we don't want them to suffer, or we don't want to see them, or we don't want the negative impacts. There isn't a correct answer in that. There isn't something that meets everybody's needs, but this is a way to truly address it in a way that provides support, opportunity, and sometimes, just as Supervisor Giomi mentioned the last meeting, sometimes it's as simple as not having access to identification because of a life event earlier on. I hear about there are so many jobs available. Why don't people just get jobs? Absolutely, that's part of it. But you also have to have identification to get jobs. You have to have clothes, clean clothes. You have to have access to a shower. You have to have the skill set to consistently get to your job and all of those steps. And that's what this is about. So I know I'm a little off track to your comments, but I think it's incredibly important that this be looked at in the holistic problem-solving spirit that it is intended to address.
And everything you said is correct. I'm familiar with all of that. There is no one-size-fits-all thing. And so I would say we shouldn't have been presented with the 180-day maximum stay language. And certainly, somebody else should not have come along and changed that in the letter of intent after this board voted on that language. That's the point I'm trying to make. Everything you said is 100% correct. I do have a little insight on these issues, so that's all. I didn't mean to intend. I didn't intend to mean that the services weren't necessary or that there's not a problem. Just that it shouldn't have been changed after this board voted on the language that was presented.
Thank you. Supervisor Jones?
I kind of question the use of the indigent fund. To me, that's kind of an emergency fund that we have. And what would the impact be if we didn't use this fund towards this program?
So
We'd have
can
no
I speak
sustainability.
real quick? So the ARPA funds is what we're talking about. We can't wrap all of these funds into this one program. The ARPA is a federal program. So
I
when we give
understand
these
that.
awards out, we're looking at the 1.16. The rest of the funds are for potential ongoing running this program after the ARPA money runs out.
Okay, I
So-
still question using it for running the program. I think
So
it's
supplemental
designed for other
indigent
use.
is exactly for this, though. It's for
Yeah,
helping
that's the
indigent
only thing it can
individuals.
be.
It is the only thing it can
Right.
be used for. We
right.
cannot use it for emergency funding.
Okay.
Right. And we can't use it
I
as a
just wanted
general fund
clarification.
activity. We can't
No.
use it. It's its best purpose. And if you look at that and see that we have $1.5 million that's sitting from years of accumulation, it's because we haven't programmatically determined an indigent program of value. And I think that the team worked extremely hard to look at this indigent dollars and say, what is the need in Carson City to help the most needy? And so this was the plan that was developed by the task force. And I think, as Ms. Russell indicates, we can't use it. There isn't a higher and best use or another place that we could put the dollars. And so I'm very comfortable with this. And the reason to show, for me, the purpose of the summary funding was I don't want to start a program that we can't sustain either, or that we don't already have the funding and I don't have to look to the taxpayer to find a tax increase. I thought that it was fortunate that we had accumulated dollars that are specific for indigent services. That's what they're there for. So I felt very comfortable when we went through the funding to say, we have 4 years available for help. And then I'm hoping at the 2 and 3 year mark, you really can start working with the federal government on the HUD standards, because to me, that's where part of the real issues lie, is to expand how those vouchers can be utilized to sustain the program. So I'm very comfortable that we have a 4-year plan and an opportunity. As far as the individual numbers, I don't think the housing plan that was submitted, and I'll apologize, I served on it with Ms. Schutte. These were estimates that we had received from the discussions out in the market, approximately this or approximately that. It's up, I'm comfortable. I don't think we were saying the absolute maximum is 90,000 to me is fine, because again, we're looking at 2 to 4 years. In the letter of intent, we're only working on not quite 2 years.
Yeah, a little under 2 years.
A little under 2 years. So when you did the math, it seems fine to me. We might get somebody that comes in at 50,000. We don't know, and we can work, the review group will work hard to put in the goals, the negotiations, and the details that you're all striving for here. So I'm very comfortable with what we have here. Supervisor Giomi?
Maybe shame on me, but I looked at this as a general plan, not a specific budget. When I was voting on this, I was voting on the plan. I wasn't looking at those numbers as absolute numbers. And in fact, when I made my motion, I asked that the city come back with a document that does call out the numbers we're talking about and the sources of that money. So that was my motion, which this body approved. So the numbers in here, in my mind, they were never intended to be absolute. And when I made my motion, I didn't intend them to be absolute, because I asked staff to bring back the absolutes, which in my estimation, they've done in this letter of intent. I get a little concerned too, because we've never done this. We don't know what we're talking about other than some anecdotal discussions that have happened with the body. And I would hate to get to the point where we do all this work and have these funds, and the number that comes back is 92,000 or 91,500, not 90,000. And if that's what it takes to do the job, then that's what I want to spend. So I'm a little bit concerned that we get so focused on, the numbers versus the outcomes or the intended goals. We know we have a budget. I understand that. How that budget is distributed maybe is not best left to us, maybe best left to the people who are going to be doing the work on our behalf within the context of the overall budget. I'm not saying that they get a blank check, but I'm saying that if they're going to be the experts who are going to run it, they should tell us, maybe, as you said, Mayor Bagwell, maybe 40,000 is enough, but maybe 95 is the number. And maybe on the housing side, it's not 600,000, it's 290,000. I don't know. I don't know how to write that in that thing in such a way that we can't get there. But I'm comfortable with it as a starting point, and I hope this body doesn't get so focused on the individual numbers of the phases that we lose sight of the overall goal and the overall project here. That's my hope.
We can take the dollar amount off and let the letter of intent work. We
I'd be
can say
way
street
more comfortable with
outreach.
that.
Street outreach, take off applicants can apply for funding. We can just say everything is for the 2 years, which is what's up there. So we can say street outreach and so we can just take off the 2 amounts.
Yeah, and let's see what they come back
And
at.
see what they come back with.
And we'll look at their proposals and
Right,
make a
that's
decision
fine.
based on that. I like that. I love that.
Removing those guardrails
Fine.
is probably a good idea.
Would you like that to be a motion, Madam Mayor?
I need public comment first,
Okay.
sorry.
Just trying to move things along.
Yep,
for you.
we're close. Is there any public comment on this item? I'll accept a motion. Gotta do the legal stuff.
Okay, well, I thought you were gonna make the motion.
I'll be happy to.
But I'll go ahead.
I'd be an honor.
Go ahead, do it.
I move to improve the letter of intent as published with the removal on phase 1, street outreach, remove applicants can apply for funding up to 90,000. Take that wording out, and the same on phase 2, remove the wording, applicants can apply for funding up to 600,000.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those as amended, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no.
No.
Let the record reflect 4 yeses and 1 no. Thank you very much, and thanks. Please let Mariana know that we're happy she had a vacation, and thanks for her good work.
I will, thank you.
Okay. All righty, we're on to agenda item 16A, which is discussion and possible action on bill number 117, an ordinance relating to marijuana for the provisions of our curbside pickup services. Ms. Ferris, we're on second reading. Do we have any changes?
No changes.
Do we have any questions, members of the board? Do we have any public comment on 16A? 16A on the curbside? That's okay. Thought I'd talk about curbside. So, no? Oh, on curbside? Come on up, Denny.
Mayor, Board Supervisors, my intake on this through the process that I've been able to be part of is that curbside was a temporary consideration during COVID and was not necessarily going to roll into a permanent situation. And I would like not to have had this on here, but I didn't catch it fast enough to suggest it should be pulled. So that's my comment. I'm personally have position on this whole item, but that's my position on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Will Adler for the record, representing Silver State Government Relations, representing GTI. Curbside delivery was a temporary measure sort of put into place by the strain of COVID and the need to not be inside buildings and sort of have the processing of marijuana transactions done outside the normal box that we put them in, right? And that's essentially where curbside and drive-through come from, is this COVID era where people were not wanting to line up or be in a building, and then we had a lot of strain with additional people, in any building 6 feet apart. After you scan them in, it's almost impossible. So that's where we developed the curbside delivery policy, much like Walmart, everywhere else, where you can sort of order and have curbside delivered to you. But ours is very, sanitized, where somebody has to come, check your ID, matched up with the order you have, make sure that order is exactly what you ordered. You have to pay for it there. They then take the money inside, get the product, and then bring it out to you. You double check the order. They check that it's your name on the receipt, and they put it in a bag, and they put it in the back of your car, not in the front of your car, because it was thought it would be leading to, DUI situations if we, incentivize people by handing it directly to them. So you have to either put in your side seat or the back of your car for curbside. That program was put together, and why I mention it now is it's still somewhat beloved by about 10% of the population. Some of them are young kids who like the convenience of curbside, but a vast majority of them are sort of these older folks who do still want to stay distanced or want to stay separated for personal concerns or additional, COVID concerns or health concerns. So we do see more people tailoring to that than anything. Other than that, it is, 80% of the business is back in the store, but that 10 to 20% do love it for what it is. Thank you.
Thanks. Do I have any further public comment on curbside? Mr. Farmer, morning. You're good.
I have to say, is this thing on? Yeah, okay.
Green, go.
Good morning, Mayor Bagwell, supervisors. I'm Guy Farmer, been a Carson City resident and voter since 1962. This morning, I'm speaking for myself and my friend, former Supervisor Shelley Aldine, who couldn't be here today. Mayor, I had the pleasure of hearing your fact-filled presentation on homelessness at the Chamber of Commerce last week. And I applaud the efforts you're making, the board and civic organizations, to address that difficult issue. One of the main points you made in your presentation was that two of the root causes of homelessness are drugs and alcohol. One of those drugs is marijuana, which is classified by the Federal Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, as a Schedule I dangerous drug, and for very good reason, because it's been proven that marijuana damages the developing brains of young people and teenagers. I'm concerned. I have two teenage grandsons. And as I mentioned, marijuana is classified as a dangerous drug. Now, given these facts about marijuana that are very clear to everyone, I have a question for you, Mayor Bagwell, Supervisors Jones and White, my friends. Given what we know about marijuana and the dangers thereof, why would you overrule your own planning commission, go against the will of the people you represent, remembering that we voted against the legalization of recreational pot in 2016? Why would you do that and enable the corrupt marijuana industry to expand its pernicious activities and operations here in our historic capital city? I just don't understand why you would do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any further public comment on curbside? We're on curbside or on the dispensaries? Okay, this is on curbside. You can make it on 16A or 16B, it doesn't matter, whichever. You'll wait? Okay. Okay. Nope, you already commented, Denny, thank you. No, I was asking a different individual which one he was asking to testify on. Okay, so any further public comment on 16A? I'll bring it back up to this board. Do we want a motion or discussion? I'll leave it to. Supervisor Schutte.
And for the public, the 16A, what we're doing is just revisiting the curbside. This isn't about the additional dispensaries, so just for clarification.
Okay. So I'll accept a motion. Somebody gonna make a motion?
Go ahead.
Supervisor Jones?
I move to adopt on second reading Bill 117, Ordinance 2022-18.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for Bill number 117, Ordinance number 2022-18. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. The motion carried unanimously. Thank you. We're now on to
I'm
agenda
sorry,
item.
Madam Mayor, could I get the who moved and who seconded again? Granicus is giving me a, you moved?
White second.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm just having computer issues, thanks.
Okay, we're now on to agenda item 16B, which is discussion and possible action regarding a request from Qualcan to adopt on second reading Bill number 118, which is an ordinance revising the provision to increase the number of authorized marijuana retail stores and other matters properly related thereto. Ms. Ferris, do we have any changes from the first reading?
No changes, just as a reminder, the introduction did include a total of 4 marijuana retail stores.
Yeah, increasing by 2. Right. Does any member of the board have a question? Is there public comment on this item? I believe Mr. McGrath wanted to comment.
Go ahead. Thank you, sir.
Mr. French.
Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. I am so pleased that I didn't buck out on the fact that this was a huge agenda, because it gave you an opportunity, Mayor, for you to suggest on item 7B how important the principle of the vote. In 2016, the people voted against marijuana in this community. It was seen correct at the time by the supervisors to override that. I think that was a very unfortunate step in the wrong direction. Also, as far as Maurice White, and I appreciate the fact that when somebody gives you numbers and you felt you were voting on specific numbers, that should stand. I also understand that the mayor is saying those were considered flexible, and Stacy Gomi, supervisor, suggested that he was voting for the plan, not the numbers. Those were whatever. Also then, to relate to the fact that my confidence in all of this is that we are actually being heard. I believe you hear us. I believe what we do here matters, but I also believe that what happened in that polling box mattered. And the principle of that, no matter what position I would take on marijuana, for or against, is not the topic here. I mentioned this to Supervisor White, and I didn't do a very good job, Supervisor Gomi, at expressing that, because you both had opposing or at least dissimilar positions. I mentioned to both of you that I felt you're losing the people, and I should have said you're losing me. My confidence in your holding to the constitutional right that I had to vote was what should have been considered a no vote for any of you, because it had been decided by the people. The fact that we have two is beyond me, but I wasn't part of that process. I'm sorry I wasn't tuned in. So the vote period is a breach in my confidence of your ability to respect votes, as you had your discussion on your hold on a vote being firm, and that should matter. I have my position that that vote in 2016 should matter, and it should be the point of today, not whether I like can or whether I don't like marijuana or like it. Does not matter. My thing is, I have an opinion, and I will state it, but at stake here is again going against the people's vote, and I'm very opposed to that. Even if I had voted one way or another, this is so important. It's like we're for sale. $3,500 can buy you a change of a ballot outcome. And that is disgusting to me, and it's very frustrating to my confidence of the process. So I totally want this to be the end of this discussion. Stick with what was said before. We have some, we shouldn't have any. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Do I have further public comment?
Go ahead.
Hello, Will Adler for the record, representing Silver State Government Relations, representing GTI, doing business as Rise Carson City. GTI sent you all a very detailed public comment and individual letter, sussing out some of their concerns and feelings, similar to those that happened during the first hearings. Ultimately, GTI understands the decisions of the board and does understand that, with the expansion of dispensaries and expansion of opportunities as well. They are the possessor of the third license in Carson and would like to, utilize that similar to what Qualcan is going to do today. Just to raise a public concern or public comment at this time, there's a limited amount of time to perfect those licenses. The state of Nevada has said you must begin or have probably perfected at this time by February, 2022. We have until that date to say we have that license open and operational, or we could lose it at a state level. Because of that, I did raise the concerns of what is Carson City's current zoning look like, what are the current bubbles there for, and why are they there? Going back to why they're there, Back in 2014, we established that medical marijuana was going to come to this town. We wanted to make it come to a town in a controllable and, very limited capacity. Under that guise, that's why, I sent you the map that I created. We developed 3 sort of, zonable bubbles where cannabis could be done. Really 2, but it's the south end of town and east end of town stretching out from Highway 50 there off the 395 junction. Why I bring that up is because similarly, GTI has looked into Carson City's properties and its structures around town, what would be available today. As of today, the number of properties are extremely limited. It's down to 1, 2, or 3 properties, maybe at best, because as I sent you the overlay, the leasable property in Carson City, especially retail property, is almost exclusively outside the bubbles designated for appropriate cannabis commercial use here in Carson City. Just to, again, reiterate this, we understand the board's decisions, we understand your positions at this time, and we accept those and we want to embrace those. But to do that and do that fully, this committee does feel maybe a broader look at the zoning and what the zoning entails in this town. Not on this agenda item, we understand it's a fixed one today, but if someone could bring up a comment or maybe ask staff or direct them to at least look into, is there other appropriate commercial districts to be zoning cannabis dispensaries into? As I feel we are similar to most setting retail and probably far less destructive than any liquor store that you would find because of the level of regulation and scrutiny we are held to and the amount of impact we have with our investment in these communities. So again, thank you very much, and thank you for hearing me out. And I know it's a pivoted agenda item on this one, but this is where we have fallen as of the previous board comments and votes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Adler. Any other? Ms. White?
Is it on now?
Mhm.
Okay. I appreciate the time most of you took to meet with me and my husband. However, I feel that you who voted for the ordinance change disregarded the impact on our life and disregarded all of my fellow residents who came to ask you not to increase the presence of marijuana in our community. Our life and our safety will be destroyed by the proposed drive-through if they do that. That would be 50 feet from our front door. We would always be looking over our shoulder for strangers violating our privacy and safety. I am saddened by your insistence in allowing our community to greet visitors with a marijuana dispensary, which would cast a shadow on the magnificent eagle that greets visitors now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Tasha Kusti for the record, Carson City resident. In my opinion, Nevada is moving too fast. There's a reason hindsight is 2020. Our decisions should be driven by supporting data and not speculation. There are still unanswered questions about how the legalization of marijuana may be contributing to the increase of drug use in our schools, increased drug use amongst our homeless population, and the studies of THC on mental health are still in their infancy. Furthermore, our law enforcement officials do not have a decent method that will determine who is driving stoned. The most responsible thing we could do is monitor and study the actual impacts on our community before adding additional marijuana dispensaries into our city. Carson City does not need to be in a hurry to increase the number of marijuana dispensaries in town and should not be going out of their way to normalize marijuana without considering sound supporting data. There has not been enough time that has passed to gather and study the data necessary to determine how the legalization of marijuana is truly impacting our community. In addition, I have concerns about our city allowing drive-through for marijuana pickup. A person's vehicle is not a controlled environment and the possibility that children are present contradicts the current law that prohibits children from being in dispensaries. We are assisting in further normalizing marijuana use with our children by allowing drive-throughs. Possible marijuana use in a vehicle with children present also threatens their health and well-being. Furthermore, the co-location of a dispensary and a restaurant in one building only encourages people who have purchased marijuana to stick around instead of heading home. I believe that this partnership will increase the illegal use of marijuana in the proposed public space. The law is already being disregarded in similar social settings. And additionally, this co-location further enables exposure of children to marijuana and has the potential to send the signal that marijuana purchasing is a family activity. Please take these items into consideration and be cautious and conservative when you vote.
Sarah, would you turn that one off? Thank you.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Good morning, Madam Mayor and members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Sarah Adler. I'm a volunteer advocate on behalf of Jeannie White and Bruce Sanders, nearly 30-year residents at 497 West Bennett Avenue. I'm also a concerned citizen of this region. I thank all of you who took the time to meet with the Whites, and I applaud Supervisors Schutte and Giomi, who voted against the expansion for excellent reasons in support of the health and safety of the citizens of Carson City. So I remain opposed to the expansion of licenses, and I have these specific points and concerns. Number one is the seesaw of the permissibility of drive-throughs. At the July 27th Planning Commission, the applicant said we're withdrawing drive-throughs. In private meetings, several have expressed their concern about drive-throughs. The attorney for the applicant at the August 18th meeting said at 2 hours and 37 minutes into the meeting, the drive-through language has come out. Yet the drive-through language is in the ordinance that is before you now. So this yo-yo of different claims makes me lack confidence in the city's overall capacity to manage additional marijuana establishments in a safe manner. Further, this drive-through creates increased opportunity for underage sales, for marijuana users to be co-located with children, and for users to immediately access for themselves an illegal location to use marijuana, which will be the White's property there, as Jeannie said, in her front yard. So another concern I have, additional dispensaries and allowing the co-location of a restaurant and a dispensary with a patio owned by the same company exacerbates the likelihood of harmful use of marijuana by pregnant women and underage youth. And speaking to data, the Journal of the American Medical Association this week published a report on the harmful result on children of marijuana use in utero. They found an analysis of data from more than 10,000 children aged 11 and 12 revealed that exposure to cannabis in utero was associated with higher risk of developing disorders such as ADHD, aggressive behavior, conduct disorder, and rule-breaking behavior. Not what our teachers need. So again, I think this expansion is unnecessary. It also creates an unfair advantage to the new companies. They don't have to sustain the cost of managing the marijuana dispensary as well. So thank you for your time.
Perfect timing. Do I have any other public comment? Ms. Trzynski? Mr. McGrath wants to go last, Ms. Trzynski. He's trying to orchestrate his testimony. Come on up.
Joy Trushinsky, Carson City residents, for the record. Of course, I opposed the expansion of marijuana shops in Carson City. Marijuana is a dangerous drug. I know it is used for some medical purposes, and that's fine, but expanding marijuana shops, it's going to lead to more people who use, I feel, and I believe there should be a moratorium on this expansion, and there should be a referendum. People should vote. Our citizens should vote on these kind of things that will greatly change our city. And I hope that you will change your minds and stop this expansion of marijuana shops. I know for a fact, when I worked in a prison, a lot of the inmates I talked to, and they were felons, male felons, you know, they started with using marijuana and then went up to harder drugs. So, I mean, that is a reality, and you should think twice before you expand marijuana shops in Carson City. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are we down to Mr. Carlson? You will come up when it's you're actually the applicant. So there was a question, and I will answer that because I believe Ms. Aldine had commented earlier about why Qualcan had more time than the 3 minutes. I just, for the record, want to indicate they are the actual applicant and party to the item, so they are not public comment. So I just wanted to put that on the record. It's not preferential treatment, it's how we treat all applicants. They're the party to the item. So public comment, do I have any more? I think we're down just to Mr. McGrath. Thank you.
Mayor, Board of Supervisors members, you should have a copy of a. Can you move that closer, Chair?
We do.
Thank you. You hear now? You should have a copy of the cannabis in Nevada and how we got to this position. And it started about 5 years ago when the voters said no to recreational marijuana. We had some enterprising supervisors who used their position to bring the marijuana industry into Carson City. They should have recused themselves, and that would have never passed because the people did not want it. Now, I want to give you some information on last 2 weeks ago when you had your first reading. Okay, this place was overwhelmed with people who rejected that meeting or rejected marijuana during the first meeting, but yet we're bringing it up to a second meeting. And I understand from listening to what's going on, there's possibly going to be approved that they make these changes. Now, we have a real serious problem with the medical issues that have come about because of the overflow of marijuana in this community. We have more marijuana establishments, including the black market, to fill just about everybody in town with a little basket or something like that they can take it home and smoke. And then when you have delivery services, and I understand Will just mentioned the drive-through, we had delivery services too. Yeah, delivery services, you know, I mean, they were going into the other counties, you know, the counties that didn't want that. And now we have not only the delivery services, we also have the amount of drugs or marijuana that's flowing through our schools and everything else like that is really a problem. Having addressed this issue with the school people, they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, I don't think, because of who was on the board and didn't want to take any action. But they have so much problems with school children getting involved with marijuana from their parents or just doing it themselves, that you should consider an motion to go ahead and review all the things that are happening in this community with respect to marijuana and come back with a plan for the whole community. Now, I'm going to address this to you, Mayor. You indicated that you've got one of the priorities of the board is to make sure the health and safety of this community is in your thoughts, and that you should consider that because all the deaths and of abuse of the drug has caused so many problems with this community. Now, you have a copy of this, and it gives you some ideas and some suggestions, and I would appreciate your consideration that you look at it that way. You know, there's also other things, I mean, with the number of people that were involved at your last board meeting, it wouldn't take much to get a petition going to force you folks to take some action.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you,
thank
Mr.
you.
McGrath. Appreciate it. A couple people came in late, so I'll give you just one last thing because we're ready to close this one up. But just in case, is there any further public comment? Ms. Strasburg?
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity, Mayor Bagwell. There are a couple of things that I would like this board to address. Number one, I saw that it called in the ordinance marijuana establishment, which was a word used by the applicant. I would think that establishment leaves a lot of things to people's imagination. So I think that needs to be more focused as to what we're talking about. Are we talking about dispensaries or something else? Second, I think that the horse had already left the barn in 2017. But I do think this board should listen to the public sentiment expressed at the last meeting and also at this meeting, I assume, that there was a reason for co-locating the medical dispensary and the retail dispensary together. The product supplied in each of those categories is quite different. The THC level for a medical prescription marijuana gummy is very different than the high THC levels found in retail product. And lastly, I seriously would question people approving the drive-through. In the COVID time, we had people drive up and get their product, but drive-through can bring a lot of traffic, which may not always be very productive for our city. Thank you so much.
Mr. Nagel?
Thank you again for allowing me to speak. My name is Richard Nagel, for the record. I just think that by changing the regulations to allow the other two marijuana dispensaries, or, again, it shouldn't be called an establishment, so that we can find out that it's not going to be like a hookah lounge or something like that later down the road. But you are, in fact, by changing the regulations, endorsing the use of marijuana. We have a hard enough time in Carson City. They want another dog for the high school to sniff out drugs. So you are, in fact, endorsing marijuana. So I want you to look at it from that angle. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we are completed with the public comment period. I'll bring it back up to this board. Does this board have any questions for the applicant? Okay, at this point, we don't have any questions for the applicant. If something comes up, I certainly will allow the applicant their appropriate time. I see Supervisor Giomi would like to, I see his hand.
A couple of questions for staff that came to mind via the comments. The language, the way it's proposed, removes the requirements for the cannabis dispensary to be co-located with a medical marijuana dispensary, correct?
Yes, and instead it flips it to require the medical to be co-located with a retail.
So that we end up with 4.
So that we still end up with 4 in total.
Right, not 6.
Instead of
Okay,
6.
that was my
Right,
question. I want to make sure if you take that out, are we then opening the door to having 2 medical marijuana dispensaries in addition to 4?
The way that it's written, no, it would be a total of 4 with those 2 medical facilities, medical dispensaries being co-located with retail.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'll just take my comment time now since
Go.
I've got the floor. Yeah, my position hasn't changed. I'm not for this ordinance. I have to admit that the last time through, I was focused on the number of dispensaries and I completely ignored the comment on drive-through service. And so I guess I would challenge the rest of my board members to really ask themselves that question pretty hard. Do we really want drive-through? If you are going to approve the 4, do you really want drive-through? I'd ask you to just think about that yourself. I remain opposed to this for a lot of reasons. I remain opposed to it, particularly the concern I have with the one proposal was a co-located restaurant. I understand that we're only voting on an ordinance here and we're not voting on a specific application. So we don't know if that application is going to come back in the location they said it was going to. We don't know if it's going to come back with a restaurant. But I really would implore staff that if this does pass, that we look strongly at Title 18 and the controls we have in place to regulate this. I think the city of Las Vegas has done a good job in regulation. I'd ask staff to look heavily in that direction. I really want to find a way to prevent a restaurant or any other business from being co-located with a dispensary. I believe there's got to be a way to do it. Whether it be a requirement that the dispensary ownership group disclose all interest in any other business or whatever the case may be. I know that's probably a comment for a different time, but it just bothers me the fact that we are potentially that close to having some kind of a medical marijuana lounge, and I'm not in favor of that. As I think about the implications of this passing, without the knowledge of it passing or not, I don't know. We can't talk about it other than here. But I suspect if the vote goes the way it did before, it'll pass. Then I begin to think about the regulations we being this body put in place, although it wasn't us in 2017 or all of us. And the distances from residences, the distances from schools, and all of those other considerations that I know are not up for discussion today, but that have to be brought back to this body at some time, have to be brought back. Because as we look at this, is the distance from a residence 300 feet really the right number? We didn't know in 2017 when it was passed. We didn't know the answer to that. Do we know that answer now? Do we feel comfortable enough to say that the front door of a dispensary is okay within 300 feet of a residence? I don't know the answer to that, but if it's gonna pass, this has got to come back to this body. And I understand that we may be creating situations where, they're legally existing or whatever your comment is.
Non-conforming use?
Yeah, non-conforming use, thank you. But I think we owe it to our community to consider those rules that were established by the previous board in 2017 and see if they're all still applicable. I think it's one thing to change zoning as it pertains to setback of hounds and those kinds of things and create a situation where you have, legal non-conforming. I think it's a whole different ballgame when we're talking about something like this that we don't have years of experience with. So I know all that isn't before us today. I just say that because otherwise, if I don't say it now, it's going to get lost in the noise. I'm not for adding 2 more. I won't vote for it. And I really implore staff and this board to back me up at the very least on coming back with regulations that don't allow us to go into some vortex of doom. Thank you.
Supervisor White?
Thank you. And your offer to consider the drive-through. We've heard concerns today that it's going to cause more traffic. I don't know that having a drive-through makes somebody go to a store any more than they would if they had to walk up to it. And if you consider what happens in a drive-through, you don't get out of your car with a pocket full of cash. You don't walk out of the store with a pocket full of dope. I see an improved safety issue, to be honest with you, with the drive-through. I would like to remind everybody, as in the last meeting, I expressed substantial concern about recreational marijuana because we do not have a reliable field sobriety test. In fact, when that was on the ballot, I voted against recreational marijuana. I lobbied this board to honor that vote. That didn't happen. That vote has sailed. Today is a different question about whether this body is honoring a vote. Previous body did not honor the vote. We have a different question in front of us today. And that question for me is a matter of, is it appropriate for the government to manipulate the market? I say no, it is not. As to concerns about whether we're having increased difficulties in Carson City because marijuana has been made recreational, I will also remind everybody, including this board, that the sheriff and the DA have chimed in that they have not seen marked problems with recreational marijuana. In fact, our growth management ordinance has a very specific set of statistics that the sheriff has provided showing that it has not caused problems, marked problems in this town. I can assure everybody in this room and everybody outside this room, I will continue to advocate for very strict special use conditions to keep this endeavor under control. I think the people of this town have spoken about whether they want retail or not. And I base that on the communications that have come to me through emails and phone calls on both sides of the issue. And I base that on the fact that these establishments have thousands of customers that go to these stores every year. Those people's voice are just as valid as the 19 people that spoke against this ordinance in our last meeting. Thank you. That's all I have.
Supervisor Jones?
I have several comments. First of all, Stacy, you said, Supervisor Jerome, that you thought Clark County had good control of this.
Specifically, City of Las Vegas.
Okay. I don't know. I walked the strip area not very long ago, and it was one constant smell.
Yeah,
of
that
marijuana.
absolutely, that is Clark County, but I'm talking about the regulations that pertaining to zoning that the City of Las Vegas has.
I'm just saying, the use is rampant. Since last meeting, I purposely have asked a lot of people, some friends, some just acquaintances, what is your feeling? And most people are very indifferent that I talk to. They don't really care. They said, I've had a couple tell me, yeah, I use it for medicinal purposes. I've had some people say, I don't care, I don't use it. Is it a gateway? I think it probably is. I think beer is probably a gateway to higher liquor use. So I don't think that's a valid argument that this is only the gateway to drugs. I get very upset when I hear people say, well, if you approve this, the kids are going to all be drug addicts. The kids aren't buying drugs from these dispensaries. They can't afford it to begin with. They're getting it from the black market, and that's beyond our control. And like Supervisor White said, I went to the DA and sheriff specifically, and I said, tell me about marijuana. The DA said, me and my staff have not spent 5 minutes on any marijuana issue since it's become legal in Carson. I have to take these things into consideration when I vote. I will vote for it.
Okay, so that leaves me. So just listening to the public comment today, Mr. McGrath, worried about the youth, Shelley Aldine, Mr. Farmer, all of you. There's no one, I will agree with you, more worried about our youth and drugs and alcohol for our youth. If I thought voting no would save our youth, I'd be right there with you. I don't believe so. I believe a dispensary is regulated just like our gaming and alcohol establishments. Does it stop the youth from access? Of course not. I'm not naive. But the actual dispensary is not where the youth are obtaining the drugs. I will say there was an article in Mr. McGrath's information that dealt with the opioid dollars and the settlement. And I hope at a later time that can come back to this board for discussion with the money. And I hope that we kind of use our behavioral task force on the drug use in the youth. And I hope that's where we put those dollars and do a good plan to help mitigate youth use. I hope we do the same thing. And I think this board is probably pretty committed to doing everything we can to help alleviate the use by youth, because I think that's what we're all talking about today. But nope, this is our time. I just want to acknowledge that we do listen, we do read all of the public comments. What you in the audience seem to believe is because 19 people came to testify against it and 2 were proponents, that we had no other access to the other 58,000 people that live in this community that comment to us, because they do, right? It's not only a person that shows up for a meeting that determines where we're going. So we get tons of emails, we get tons of phone calls. I go to lots and lots of different events, and I think I'm like what Mr. Jones said. I ask everyone. I do, everyone. I want a cross-section of my community. That's what I'm really looking for, to ask questions. And I'm here to tell you, John and I were the no votes to honor the ballot when it was originally done. You had 2 people that voted no on that ordinance, which was John and myself, because we wanted to honor the vote of the Carson City resident, right? So this question, I also agree, is no longer that. I think even Bepsi, whether you guys recognize this or not, we're listening. You said it. The cat already, it's out of the barn. The horse is out of the barn. I can't put that back in. I cannot be the genie that says there'll be no legal marijuana sales in Carson City. We have the 2 dispensaries. It's there. It's no longer the honoring of a vote of the people. That happened in 2017, that members of this board made a different decision. And I'm not even going to stick up for them, but I think there was more to it. It wasn't just the vote of the people. When you got to the final legislation, there was more in that legislation that the other 3 members of the board were concerned about, which was the growing in your individual households if you didn't have a dispensary within 25 miles. So I can tell you there were more issues than just a yes or no vote, which is what the public was voting on. Again, not sticking up for them, but John and I were the no votes. We didn't win that one. So I just don't want you to think we're not listening. We don't always agree. I think that Mr. French said that one well. We weigh all the information that comes before us in all avenues, not just those that come and do public testimony. So I think it's important that you recognize we have lots more access to more people than just those that come to a meeting. This ordinance does not deal with the co-location on whether or not you allow a restaurant to be co-located, because that might facilitate use. I question that. I think that's barking up the wrong tree. I could form another LLC and be a company and that's not the right thing to do. We have them located next to Toma right now. So what if they're different owners? It's still next to a restaurant. So I just don't think that's it. The other issues brought up by Mr. Adler and Supervisor Giomi is for a separate item. I'm always willing to listen. The public always has a right to ask. And certainly I'm not opposed to looking at a later date. We will be bringing all of Title 18. Mr. Yu is not here today. We have Mr. Reese filling in because he's working on the Title 18. So we'll have opportunities to look at that. He's promised me December. I know he's listening, so I'm taking him at his word. So shortly, I think we'll have an opportunity as this board to comment in the zoning and the rules in Title 18 that we're all discussing today. So for that reason, I'm going to vote yes. Okay, so we're going to get there on a motion, so you'll see. Do I have a motion? Somebody want to make it?
Oh,
No, she's comment on, you can, right, go ahead, thank you.
I move to adopt on second reading Bill 118, ordinance 20-22-19.
I have a motion and a second for bill number 118, ordinance 2022-19. Do I have further discussion?
Yeah,
Supervisor Schutte?
as I'm going to be voting no. I see this as, I don't believe there is a compelling need to revise the existing ordinance, and that's the question that I see before me.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no.
No.
Let the record reflect that Supervisor Giomi and Supervisor Schutte voting no. Thank you. And thank you all for your public comment. And I will say, based on the Constitution and everything, that it is the right of everyone to come and testify. So thank you. Okay, we're gonna, and be good stewards. We're counting on you. Okay. We're gonna move, do we need, I was gonna say just a quick little break and then we'll jump in. So we're in recess. Thank you. Number 17A, which is a proposal on our public art policy. Ms. Fudge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I wasn't sure, do you want me to walk you through the policy or just the changes that have been commented on from the board?
Let's go with the changes and then the board can add any comments or other recommendations.
Okay, I think the city manager is going to walk you through the comments that you all provided. She has it consolidated.
All right, good morning. So based on some discussions and questions this week, we have submitted a couple of proposed revisions to the policy that was included in your packet. We submitted that's in your late material. So there weren't a whole lot. If you look in. Let's get to it. Okay, sorry.
Do you want my hard copy?
So maybe just for help, to help everyone with this process, you can talk about any change. Let's just go page by page. I think it'll be faster and easier.
Okay.
And then if any member of this board has a change on that page, they can chime in for anything on that. I think it'll be much more conducive process-wise. So if you'll start us off with page 1.
All right, on page 1, in section 3, we just added the abbreviation for the Carson City Cultural Commission. I think in the rest of the document, we just referred to it as CCC without identifying what that actually meant to begin with.
Okay, anybody else have anything on page 1? Or we can,
Yes, I
Supervisor
do.
White?
In 1.0, in the fourth paragraph there, where it says the Carson City Public Art Policy is considered to be a dynamic document that is often modified and adapted in conjunction with Carson City, its policies, and its citizens. I'm not particularly interested in a policy that is often modified and adapted, and that goes along with some of my concerns a little later on later pages. But I would like this policy to be substantially more static than the way it is laid out, and so I would like to remove this often modified and adapted language.
Okay. So is there a way for you to highlight in a different color that section? So the Carson City Public Art and Policy on the screen, who's ever controlling the Word document up there? Yeah, can we just put that in a color so we can then come back on a vote? Because I may agree with Supervisor White based on the other policy changes
Right.
we're making here, that's an unnecessary statement. Because I think we're going to bring this back for an automatic review
Well,
anyway.
yeah,
So
maybe.
just color it
Yeah,
different.
maybe the comment is that is considered, yeah, we could just say the Carson City Art Policy is considered a dynamic document that will require future board approval to change. I'd be comfortable with that. Then it comes back to us.
Yeah, we want
you know.
mandatory.
Yeah.
So let's just highlight that with a color and we can then go back to the highlighted ones for debate on how we want it to read as we have a little thought here. Okay, let's go on then. Everybody else okay with everything on page 1 except for that? Okay, page 2.
So on page 2, section 4.1, just to be consistent, we changed, instead of works of art, we would like to change that to public art. And just remove the including temporary and permanent works, just because we didn't feel like that was necessary in there.
Does any member of the board have anything else on page 2? Supervisor Gioni?
Well, she wasn't done with 2, so I
Oh,
was gonna
sorry.
ask why what was the reasoning behind removing the last 2 paragraphs in B?
The third paragraph in B kind of refers to, so we're excluding temporary exhibitions of artworks from this policy, and those are like what we see right here in the boardroom.
Contradictory.
And in that third paragraph, in talking about those temporary exhibitions, we were saying that those would require a separate agreement, like agreement we have with CCAI. But we decided that if we were excluding those artworks, we really didn't need to get into that they needed a separate agreement.
Wrong policy.
So how would we, so let me give you an example of a temporary work and you tell me if this will fit. Reno is doing some work with some of the art coordinators at Burning Man to display art that the artists bring to Burning Man and display, but then move to Reno for a period of time while they're being, quite honestly, displayed for future purchase by someone. But Reno gets free art. So what if we wanted to put a pad out here somewhere next to Da Vinci's brain, for instance, where we display art that, say, someone from Burning
Rotates.
Man or from Electric Daisy Carnival, wherever the heck they may be coming from, are we okay with that?
Yes, I think that would fall under the temporary exhibitions.
It says temporary exhibits of artwork, such as gallery displays, booth displays at art festivals, individual artworks. Well, I guess it would fit under individual artworks. Displayed on city owner managed property where the owner retaining, okay, all right.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. We're good
And
with-
then just C, we thought was already kind of incorporated in B, so we just thought we could delete that paragraph.
All right, we'll move page, well, no, but I just want to double check with any of you. Do any of you have anything on page 3? Good. Moving on, page 4.
Yes.
Supervisor White?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No,
That
not on
was
page
okay,
4.
right.
And then I just had a section 6.1A. We added at the bottom that the recreation supervisor will also provide an annual report on the activities of the public art program.
Actually, I did.
Supervisor White?
At 6.1B, down towards the bottom of B there, where it says the CCC will oversee the work of the public art panels and make recommendations to the city manager or board of supervisors. I'd like to change that to "and" the board of supervisors. 'Cause, you know, for me, when the board of supervisors approves a policy, any of the activities within that policy on that level of decision-making should come back to the board.
So you're
At
suggesting
least
an and
make us
here?
aware of it.
You're suggesting an and here because you have some other edits that will fit that together. So if you'd highlight that in yellow. Yeah, in yellow, so that we can tell the difference. We may or may not, let's see where the other ones go first.
Okay.
And then
I
we'll
would just
know.
make the comment that I'm a little concerned about putting the word "and" in there because it makes them bring an awful lot to this body that probably doesn't need to come to this body.
And maybe that discussion item
It'll
will
tie
come in
in
the
with-
threshold.
Yeah.
Like you said, maybe
it'll
there's
tie
more
into some
discussion.
Other stuff that we're
Right.
talking about.
Right. We might come to a, let's run through this a little bit.
In that same paragraph, I'm reading the annual report comment. Well, it's covered in the annual report. So the annual report from the recreation supervisor could be to the CCC, the CTA, and the board, right? That was the
Mhm.
intention in A. Okay, I'm good with that. Thank you.
Improving that. Okay. Page 5. Do we want, so I guess that's the opening salvo to have this discussion. In D, the top, I think that's probably our largest discussion, is the threshold amount really will determine some of Supervisor White's concerns. It is a new program, and my concern is with this threshold, which I recognize where staff obtained it, is what we do in a standard contract. But my question to all of us is, are we comfortable with this new policy of using the 4999 threshold with the artist? Because it's not the whole project cost. Part of the difference for us is we normally budget like a public works project or a park project, but we know it has many parts. In this case, we won't see anything about the art other than a report unless the artist is getting more than $50,000, which I don't see the vast majority. So I'd like a discussion on whether this first year or two, we'd like to lower that threshold. And maybe that would help the discussion with Supervisor White. So I kind of think we should lower the threshold so that we can help monitor and say, is this working correctly? Then the CCC board, those panels, we can kind of see how it all fits together. So what do you guys think? Should we highlight the 49,999 as maybe we want to do a different answer there?
And I think
Yeah.
that should be an aggregate cost. All the engineering, all the construction, whatever the artist cost is an aggregate cost of the project.
If it's going to exceed how much, do we want that project to come before the board? Okay,
10?
so 10,000,
10,000?
let's for just right now.
Or 99.99.
Yeah, there you go. Anything over 99.99, okay. And that may then, like I said, inform the rest of the document.
I mean, I wouldn't even mind if we dropped it lower than that for this first couple of, I don't know.
You can get to 10 grand
just-
on art pretty fast.
No, you're right, you can.
I'm
99.99 is
Yeah,
fine.
let's stick with the 99.99, I don't want,
Concrete and everything else. It's fine.
okay, right. Okay.
And we need to say in there that it includes total project cost. I think it does say it.
Project.
Yeah, it does. So I don't,
Okay.
yeah.
Incredibly low number, actually.
10?
I would say 20, honestly. And,
Well, what-
and the
I
reason,
guess I would ask is
because
what's-
of aggregate.
Yeah.
I think about a certain sign that cost considerably more.
Let's just do the artist.
And I just, yeah, otherwise everything initially is going to come.
How about just the artist
There you go.
with 9999
Yeah.
or greater?
Not-
So if we're doing a contract with an artist, the rest will all come into play anyway, but if the artist is gonna be paid more than 9,999, that contract's gotta come
I'm comfortable
before the
with that.
board.
Thank you.
Yeah, because anything, I mean, if we spend over 50 anyway, it's got to come to us. So if the aggregate is over 50, it's going to come to us. So if we focus on the artist here and not the whole
Right.
project, then I'm comfortable with
Okay.
that.
And again, we can come back to those, so the 99 is just the artist contract. Okay, anything else on, the rest is just,
Yes, 6.2.
sorry, go ahead.
Where it says Carson City's redevelopment district arts and cultural grants. The district, I think that's just the wrong terminology. The district itself doesn't do
Fund.
any of the grants or the operations. I think that should say the redevelopment authority. Should it not?
I think the thought there was that was actually what we called those grants when we put out the notice of grant funding, and we called it Carson City Redevelopment District Arts and Culture Grant.
Except that I don't find anywhere in the budget that there's an arts and cultural grants line. So
Okay.
I think we should call this redevelopment
tried.
authority.
Development Authority, okay.
Yeah. Methinks.
Well, or often, authority, we usually give the fund, right? It's redevelopment funds,
You can say Carson City Redevelopment Authority grants, period.
just leave it at
Yeah,
that,
and it's going to cover it.
authority grants.
We just did that this year, you know.
Right, we
Our
just
first-
added in
our
the
first year
extra.
For the arts and culture. So that's a good, arts and culture grants, I think.
Yeah, we
that's
did.
great.
All right, so we're taking out arts and culture also?
Taking out district arts and culture.
Yeah.
Carson City redevelopment grants,
Yeah.
support, perfect,
Authority grants.
perfect. Okay, do we have anything else? Okay. We'll go to page 6. Anything besides what's already on the cash contribution that change. Do we have any others?
Yes.
Supervisor White?
6.3A, where it's talking about, you know, this dynamic and changing policy. An additional criteria may be established at the discretion of the Parks, Recreation, Open Space Department. I'm not comfortable with that. I believe we should change that to the city manager. It was like Supervisor Giomi said, otherwise everything will come back to us. I don't believe in writing a policy that has zero wiggle room. This just has too much for me.
Right.
So changing
May be
parks.
established at the discretion of the city manager.
City manager.
Yeah. And again, that, certainly the, well, and it would have been the specialist anyway, would have been recommending the changes. So I think the city manager would do it based on the, so yeah, I'm okay with city manager.
On the E up above that, just where we crossed out annually as part of
We're
the
gonna
budget.
change the donation amount
Okay,
to be consistent.
to be the
Again, the
9,
artwork is valued
Donate.
greater than.
99999.
I hope we have a
Wait,
lot of that.
Hold on, can I read this for just a second? I want to,
Uh-huh.
well, you go ahead. I'll read it because we're going to come back to it, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on page 6? Okay, page 7, anything? Page 8,
Yes.
Supervisor White?
6.6. Second sentence, at the discretion of the recreation supervisor. I would like to change that to city manager.
Right.
Same,
Same thing.
same conversation.
I agree. We don't want to let, right, who has the authority to do the alteration. So did you get that one, Nancy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Page 9, anything else besides what was?
Yes. At 3, Roman numeral 4, where it says recommendation to the city manager or the board of supervisors, I'd like to change that to and. Same as the previous change to and.
So can I ask, do
Yeah.
we need and there now that we've
Done the
reduced the number?
999?
I mean, I don't think we need the and there anymore. We've reduced the number to
Right.
the number we're comfortable with.
I-
Instead of changing and, because otherwise we're gonna have stuff at $1,000 coming to us. I don't
Well,
want to do that.
so I think, you know, as we talked about, we're going to ask for this to come back in a very short amount of time. This is the first time through.
Okay.
I really want to know what's going on with this policy.
Well, let me say it, let me understand something here. So if the project does not exceed the contract with the artist does not exceed $9,999, the CCC is making its recommendation that they're just writing the recommendation to the city manager and the board of supervisors, of which we can get a copy as the board of supervisors, but no action will be agendized to the board unless it exceeds
this-
$9,999.
Have to change the language because a memo of recommendation implies that there needs to be approval. And if you're going to put and, that would mean it would need to be approved by the city manager and the board of supervisors. So that means $1,000 contract has to come to us for approval.
Oh, I don't read it that way.
I absolutely read it that way.
I think to me, I read that is they're just going to tell us the direction they're going.
They're making a recommendation. They don't have the authority. Right, they
To
don't have,
inform the city manager, not us.
it doesn't say inform, it says
What?
recommendation.
3 says inform. What? Scope of work must follow the following process.
Yeah, to inform the city manager
it
of
should say-
approval.
Could you
Form,
say
Not ask for.
as applicable or something? So under the 4, it would either be me or the board based on, the dollar amount. So could we say something like as applicable? No? Sorry.
I don't think it's needed either way.
I think or covers it, frankly. I mean,
I think we're covered.
stuff coming to us. I mean, I don't agree with what you're saying, Supervisor White. The way I read that, it means $1,000 contract has to come to us for approval. And I don't want to bog us down. I mean, that seems very bureaucratic to me.
No, I agree that wanting us to approve $1,000 contract is not the direction to go. I want to get this structured so that we are informed what's going on. Frankly, I could see this going pretty sideways with some crazy stuff. You know, this Da Vinci's Mind out in front, that's not a piece of art that bothers me. I kind of like it. I don't think it fits the front of this building. And frankly, I've never heard anybody say a single positive comment about that. I don't want that to pop up again in another spot in town, and that's all. I'm just asking to be informed.
So let me, I mean, to carry that on, what good does it do if you're informed, if you don't like it? What good does it do?
I don't get caught sideways in a grocery store,
No,
somebody
but I
jumping
mean,
in
if
me
you would
about
vote,
it.
but if you would vote, but if you would vote against it, wouldn't
true
wouldn't
one.
you want to approve it? If you were gonna, if you're saying that,
It's an opportunity to
Yeah,
tell
I
the
mean, I
city
guess I-
manager.
well, what, you're gonna tell, so one board member is gonna tell the city manager they don't like it?
Well, any one of us can tell the city
So
manager.
then 5 of us are gonna tell her they don't like it, and then we voted without actually having a vote.
We can all talk to the city manager. I know. I don't think
I mean, I'm not trying to
I
be
don't-
ridiculous. I don't,
I don't think it matters.
so you think it should be and then?
No, I'm okay with or, is what I said.
Okay.
I'm all right with or. I think lowering
Or
the
it
amount
is.
to the 99 has made me comfortable.
I'd be more in favor of lowering it if you're really uncomfortable, lower it to $49.99 if you're really uncomfortable.
No.
Okay.
With 99. Okay, so, just, yeah, exactly. Don't get the impression on that one. He was entitled, again, we're having good Constitution Day. He was entitled to ask for it. He just didn't win that one. Okay.
That's all right.
That's all right. All
Go
right.
home
Do
and
we
mope
have any
around.
more on page 9?
Open today.
Nothing on page 9.
Okay. We got the fixed. Page 10?
Yes, page 10 at 6.7. Third, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth line, at the discretion of the recreation supervisor. I'd like that to be changed to
City manager for consistency throughout. If we're changing something, the city manager does it. Okay. Think page 11? Well, oh my gosh, we're moving right along. 13. 14.
Sorry, Mayor, on page 12,
Down something.
it has the 49.99
Oh, everywhere
again.
that's, yeah,
Okay,
is,
change that.
right,
Okay.
Everywhere.
everywhere, sorry. Good that we catch it everywhere, right. 15. 16. 17, I'll come back for the public to come and make all their recommended changes. Yeah, when we get there. 18. Okay, initial board comment. Okay, I will then open it up for public comment. Ms. Trzynski. And yours was on page 15, so we can get to the same spot. Okay, she wants to comment on page 15, so we can turn there. All right, page 15.
Oh, Joy Tershinsky, Carson City residents. For the record, I know you've already voted on this, but I want to comment on this,
voted.
on the homeless
Oh,
shelter.
Oh, item 50, you'll have to do that in final public comment. This is item specific. Sorry, I'll bring you back up. No problem, no problem. We're on public art. We went to page 15 in the public art. Okay. Well, we were ready to let you give us edits for page 15. Okay. Do I have any other? Do I have any other public comment? That's all right. All right. Then I'll bring it back up to the board here. We can bring that policy back up. Are we comfortable? How we've done? Everybody had a chance. Stacy, did you have another? One other comment or something?
Yeah,
Yes,
just,
where?
I don't know if I necessarily agree on page 6, item E. You know, we take contributions all the time, doesn't matter whether it's cash or check. But the city takes contributions all the time and deposits them. I mean, various departments have accounts for donations. I don't know why we would ask for a donation to come before us to be, I don't know why we would do that. I would leave.
Because of the strings attached to the donation.
But it doesn't say there's any strings attached.
Well, but that's why currently if they exceed 50,000 or 49,999, if there's strings attached that we're gonna have, and especially in artwork, as we've learned on copyright laws and all the other things,
Okay.
that's why.
I can acquiesce, but it
Yeah,
doesn't make sense to me. but
there's
that's
more
fine.
strings
It's
in
fine.
arts. Okay.
I don't agree, but I can live with it. I'll go home and cry like Mo is.
All right, so we're okay with, we're good with
So,
the,
you know, I have several, I guess, definition issues to different words that I think are more or less irrelevant for this short term. So do we want to talk about those now, or should I forward this stuff to staff to get this in the works for changes going forward?
forward it to the, I think we're okay with getting going, and you can forward to staff anything for the review process, because I think
Right.
you're right that during the review, we'll find some other little, well, let's hope for no hitches in the giddy up or something
Well,
like that, but I agree there might be things that come up.
Staff will find things. We've just hired,
Right.
I don't know if she even started yet. So we've just hired,
Right.
she's going to be given a policy
You're
that
right.
she had no input on.
Yes, she did. She was on the CCC.
I know
At
that.
least we got lucky about
I know,
that.
but not in
Right.
her current role, right?
Right.
So, no, I think, if we change, that language on the first page, to just say it's dynamic, however, any changes to this policy must be, completed by the Board of Supervisors. And maybe we put in there, which will be reviewed at minimum on a biannual basis.
Sure, yeah.
To start with.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So biannual's 2 years, and now it may come back before us sooner than that, but at minimum, we get it back within 2 years.
I agree.
And I think also, go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. For example, our fee policy that we have with the department, we review it annually with the Open Space Advisory Committee and the Park Commission. And if there's any changes or concerns at that level, then we bring them to the board. But if they're really not things that we can work through, we hate to waste your time. So
Yeah,
would that be,
I think this is a new policy from my perspective. I'd like to give it a couple of years the fee policy, I can see doing every year because things change every year. This isn't going to be that, things aren't going to happen that fast.
I just wanted to maybe kick it to another committee to really
First-
vet through, so then it wouldn't always waste your time.
Well, I think just because it comes to us, doesn't mean it can't go to them.
Yeah, well, it would
Right.
go to the Cultural Commission in this example,
Yeah,
but.
But I mean, I have no issue with you taking it to whomever you want to take it to, frankly. I'm just saying
Has to
it
come
has
back.
to come to us every 2 years. If you want to take it to them every year, I don't have an issue with that. It's totally up to you.
Okay, so the Carson City Public Art Policy is considered to be a dynamic document and is required to be reviewed at least every 2 years, or to biannually? Which do you want to, every 2
I don't
years?
care. Biannually could mean both twice a year or
Let's do every
years.
2
So
years.
You could say every 2 years.
To be consistent, or clear in our, yeah.
By the board.
Mhm.
Yes.
Oh, I just
You're
hit-
like, I can't get the cursor to go where I want. Yeah.
It's you accidentally hit.
When we're all watching you too.
Yeah.
When all of Carson City is watching how you type, Nancy.
He's just giving you a little more pressure. End of sentence.
And delete the rest?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And delete the rest,
Just
straight
in case you
through,
didn't have
right?
to pass the typing test.
Okay,
And the only other comment I have is that we're not replacing any of the ors with ands. We're leaving the ors as they were. Well, yeah, they're not needed.
All right.
so the one on 6-1B
Right.
was the only other one. We will leave that as
Water.
or. Because we lowered all the other things, right? Everybody?
I'd just like to point out also that in that meeting, one of the commissioners asked that staff make sure that ADA issues were addressed.
Page 6.
I think they are
Search for
on page 10.
We added the comment on page 10 to address that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So that was added after her comment about,
You also,
Art
any
for
building
all.
you're doing, you're required to comply in the
Right.
building code with
absolutely.
ADA standards. So,
Review.
And it's
will
not
do
just
all that.
physical, a lot of it's
Yeah.
visual
yes,
accommodations.
absolutely.
And also on page 12, there's a comment there too. Number 3, I think that covers the ADA question that was raised during that meeting.
With all regulations, right? Did you get all the 49.9? I just had Nancy do the search and replace, just in case, all the 49,999s to 9,999.
All right.
Miss one. We're not coming back to fix that.
keep hearing that number and it's, but wait, order now.
Yeah. Okay.
Wait, there's more.
All right, are we ready then? We can take a motion to approve
Couple of comments.
as amended.
Couple of comments.
Oh, couple comments, sorry. I thought you're not to make a motion.
No, not me. I don't know about.
Sorry
Stan.
about that, Mr. Jones.
I would just like to comment.
Okay.
I think you made an excellent choice for your new arts person. I think she'll do a wonderful job and be an asset to you. I'm very happy with your selection.
Oh, we're very excited and Dan gets all the credit for coordinating that process.
Yeah.
Okay,
Perfect.
good. Supervisor Giomi.
Yeah, I want to echo that comment, but I also want to thank a lot of people because this public art policy has been floating around in the hopper for almost the whole time I've been on the board. And, we've gone through different people as our arts person that's gone to the CTA, it's come back to the CTA. But I'd really like to thank Deborah Soul and the CTA and the work she did, and Jen and your staff, and the members that we appoint to the Carson City Cultural Commission, because they've really had to endure over the years, and I really appreciate their commitment to this. I think we've got a best-in-class policy here, and I'm super excited to see this move forward.
Thank you. Okay, I see a motion. Supervisor White?
I move to approve the Carson City Public Art Policy with the modifications suggested today.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect the vote was unanimous. Again, thank you all for a good job. And let the record reflect that Ms. Paulson has the amended version in a Word document to attach for the record.
And the Golden Pen Award.
Perfect. Okay, we're now going to move on to agenda item 17B, which is discussion and possible action regarding a proposed memorials policy to establish policies and guidelines on memorials within our park system. I'll do my disclosure. NRS 281A 420 requires me to disclose a conflict of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. In my private commitment, I serve as treasurer of the board of directors of the Foundation for the Carson City Parks and Recreation, a private nonprofit that provides support to the Carson City Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department. The foundation may receive grants or donations in the furtherance of the foundation's purpose to enhance the parks and recreational facilities in Carson City. The foundation is mentioned in the proposed Carson City Memorials policy as an organization that could possibly receive a memorial donation to benefit the Carson City Park system. However, the policy does not mandate that any memorial donation be made to the foundation, and the possibility that an individual may choose to make a donation to the foundation is no greater or lesser than a donation to any other similarly situated organization. I make this disclosure in the interest of full transparency, but because my independence of judgment on this matter is not materially affected by my commitment to the foundation, and also because Nevada's ethic provisions only require abstentions in clear cases, I will be voting on this item. Thank you. Okay, who's gonna take us through this, Lindsay or Jennifer?
Do you want us to walk you through the policy or go straight to edits like we did on the last one?
I'm fine with edits.
Okay.
Because I know this is, and just for the public, it's because these have already been vetted extensively in the committees that do the work to bring them to us as, I think as we just talked about in the arts policy, but, so if you'll walk us through the suggested edits, and we can do the same thing by page. We actually can just do the same way we just did the last one. Anybody have anything for page 1? And then every time she's got one, we'll talk about it. Anybody?
I do.
How could I guess that?
You may be-
Supervisor White.
You may be surprised, this is my only suggestion for this particular policy.
Woohoo! Okay.
If you go to line 6 of 1.1, while being
Amenities.
respectful to our citizens, this suggestion kind of goes to my larger global view of our community. We have a number of people that are residents of this community that are not citizens, and they need to be recognized as well as the citizens. I would suggest we change
Residents?
citizens to residents.
I don't have any, nobody. Everybody's all right with that, doesn't matter. Okay, residence is fine. Okay, then, anybody have anything on 2? Nope. Then page 3, the first one is, nope, 4.2. The next one, anybody on 3? 4.2, anybody? Gosh, we're good. 5 is hers. Okay, on page 5, you've got a recommendation?
For the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager. So under 4.2.4, towards the end of that paragraph, just a recommendation to add, will require adherence to the Carson City Public Art Policy, since this specific item is speaking to art.
To coordinate with what we just did. Okay, I agree with that one. Everybody okay with that? Yes? Okay. Then the next page 6, you have a recommendation.
So the recommendation here under paragraph 2 is just to add the language unless otherwise exempted before the second sentence that begins with department staff.
And that again is in case we have something large or whatever that's going to require, so we're not in conflict with our own policy. Okay, I like that.
And just a question on that, where are you going to store them?
Store the,
Oh, I'm sorry. On 4.2, were you talking about
Oh,
storage and
of
removal
removed memorials.
Of memorials, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
It's on that page, but yeah.
Where are you going to store them?
they would be stored at the Parks Administration Office.
For 30 days. Okay. Or if it's super large, you're gonna put the notice on it that starts the 30-day clock? I just,
Correct.
right, okay. And then your form discussion?
The last proposed edit is just on the memorial and donation application, which is page 8. The final sentence, kind of in the small print there, to just add other city policies within that sentence, again, to comply with the public art policy.
Good. Okay, all righty. Sounds like we're pretty good here. How about any public comment on item 17B for the memorials? Okay, seeing none. Supervisor Giomi, a motion, please.
I move to approve the policy as amended with the changes read into the record.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you so much. Okay, we're now on to agenda item 18, our non-action items. City manager, do you have some stuff to share?
I didn't have anything for today.
Okay, Supervisor Giomi?
We had our CTA meeting this week and wanted to cover a couple of things that are going on. As of June, the Kit Carson Trail now has an audio link on the visitcarsoncity.com website. And that is, you can actually pull up the website and the app and punch in the number for the site, and you'll hear an audio history of the site. So since about mid-June, there's been close to 800 visits to that page since going live. So it's pretty cool. And in the future, we can expand that with links to other historical information or whatever the case may be. Also, working on putting PR kits together for basically for influencers. And it's kind of a cool idea that the kit contains, it's an old metal lunchbox with the Visit Carson City logo, a little tin cup, and then they have one of those, remember the old time viewers? I don't remember what they were called. What were those things called that you put to your eyes and you have the circle? What were those called? Viewmaster. So it includes a Viewmaster with a couple of discs and pictures around Carson City. So it's a pretty cool idea, I thought. And one other item that, two other items I want to mention from CTA. The marketing team that they hired came up with actually a great idea, and they're premiering it at a concert coming up next Friday, I think, at Harvey's at Lake Tahoe. It's Shelton Blake or Blake Shelton or one of those, but I don't, not a country music guy.
fan?
I used to live in the George Jones and Merle Haggard and those people. I'm not sure of the new folks. Anyway, showing my age, I guess. But their CTA has built a booth, and they, for a really small amount of money, I think it's $500, you can rent space up there. They'll put the booth up there, and since it's a country concert, they're going to do things like have one of those riding ponies on a spring, some pictures behind it, like a little train to, the V&T, and one of those stick ponies. And they're going to invite people to come in and take pictures, post the pictures on social media. So with 6,000 attendants and all the followers they have, really, it's a brilliant idea to promote that. And one other thing that CTA has going with one of the groups in town is a Carson City triathlon pass. And it's just the kind of triathlon I can do. It's a drink, dine, and dip. So if you, it's a great idea. So if you take a picture yourself at Sassafras at the hot springs, but I'm trying to remember the name of the, it's Shoe Tree.
Tree Brewing.
And it's Shoe Tree, and send it in. You'll get a T-shirt that says Carson City Triathlon Drink, Dine, and Dip on it. So I think they've issued about 20 or so of those since they started this in early spring or early summer. So fun ideas and ways to promote Carson City and with social media and stuff, those posts go literally around the world. So it's really a brilliant idea. So that was it. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything anything to share under this item? Supervisor Schutte?
Just a thank you to Deborah Soul. Several weeks ago when she had spoken to the board about a possibility of attending an art tour at Burning Man. And I was like, and she actually reached out. She wasn't sure if it was, there'd be that availability, and there was. And so I had an opportunity for a very short visit to Burning Man. And the art was incredible. And just, there was a particular exhibit about wild horses. And that was just, it was really, really a cool experience. So thank you, Deborah, for letting me tag along, because it was really quite special. And then just a kudos to Carson City Public Works, from RTC's meeting last night in Campo, and talking about the different projects that have taken place this last year and actually are in the works. Roads are a big issue, and connectivity and transportation and all of that. And there are a lot of really good folks working really hard to help the money go as far as possible, and to, have access to some pretty amazing grant money. So just kudos.
Yeah, I think it was pretty amazing to indicate that, our money is used for 17% of the projects. So that's how well we were able to leverage that money. So it really is phenomenal, the small amount of money that we have, but how we were able to utilize that to bring in other resources to try and help the community with its roads needs. But yeah, it was pretty amazing. Supervisor Jones?
A couple of things. I'm happy to see that the Children's Museum has hired a new director, and they're going to need a lot of help. They truly are. We're going to have to everybody's going to have to support them. I'm on the committee for the Mark Twain mural. We found the wall and got approval on that, so we're making progress.
Perfect.
And I'll be in Hawaii next week, so don't call me.
Okay. All right, we're on our final public comment. Ms. Trzynski. I wouldn't forget.
This is for the record. My name is Joy Trzynski. I'm a Carson City resident. I strongly object to the plan to build a $1 million homeless shelter or housing units here in Carson City. This initial funding comes from the federal government via ARPA funds, which is still taxpayer money. After the plan is implemented, where will the money come from to maintain the plan after the grants end? What will be the yearly cost? Is this just another expansion of the Department of Health and Human Services? Government programs generally fail and end up costing a lot more money. Will you raise our taxes to support this plan? You build this facility and more homeless will come for the free stuff offered. Progressive cities like San Francisco, Seattle, and even Reno have spent millions of dollars on the homeless to help them, and the problem continues to grow. The homeless are camped out everywhere, littering the streets, urinating and defecating wherever they please. Crime is increasing. Why? Because the majority of homeless are drug addicts or alcoholics, and the majority have no desire to change. They do not work, but live on handouts given to them by city government or individual citizens. Progressive cities have provided money, shelter, food, clothing, even needles to support the addicts. The problem continues to get worse. Carson City, with a population of just over 60,000, we have enough organizations to help the homeless. We have FISH, the Salvation Army, churches, NA and AA and other organizations. The expansion of marijuana shops and the establishment of a large homeless shelter facility will fundamentally change Carson City in a way that will not be positive. We should have had a referendum and allowed the people to vote on these issues instead of having a few supervisors change our city for the worst. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do I have any other final public comment? Ms. Strasburg?
Betsy Strasberg. I know I missed the meeting this morning, but since this presentation I made comments on that a month ago, and it was also used at the chamber, I'm going to make my comments again. This page, it shows a very focused one-time contribution from the city, including the ones where you have a partnership. The proposal that was approved today, I assume, is an open-ended perpetual obligation funded by indigent accident funds and the America Rescue Funds of over $1 million a year. Indigent accident funds only come back to you if not used and if it is matched, which I confirmed with your finance people. America Rescue Plan is supposed to address a public health emergency. The governor has declared the end of that emergency. So how is this board approving the use of these funds to create a perpetual infrastructure for future years? Since this program will not have any pre-qual requirements, it is not targeted, nor does it address an emergency. It would be a new program for the nonprofits when American Rescue Plan funds are only to be used to give them relief if they are impacted by COVID. In the presentation, it says phase 3 is priceless. I remember that word from the hair color ad many years ago. It is not the same. If you look at the services, it is not priceless, it's pricey. It is a Cadillac Care program. If Carson City Health and Human Services is spending $40,000 to $60,000 per homeless person, 69 people equates to $4.1 million. I want to tell you, there are less people here, that there are people in this city who are making much less than that, $45,000 with average hours of 55 hours per week. And they would love to be part of your homeless population so they can get the benefits of a homeless shelter as well as the Cadillac Care. It is not fiscally responsible. It is not pennies now to save dollars later, which is a quote that Supervisor Schutte made. It is the opposite. If you check the Reno housing homeless costs, you will see that they're spending a lot higher than $40,000 to $60,000 a person. Has the surrounding counties come to the table, Supervisor Giammi? I would have urged the board not to reject the proposal because it's fiscally irresponsible.
Thank you, Ms. Strasburg. Do you have any other public comment? Mr. Nagel?
Good afternoon, Richard Nagel for the record. I truly believe that this is a big can of worms, and I think that you can't start a vast project with half a vast idea. And that one of the things that makes me think that way is that there is no regular, like fish won't touch it because it doesn't have a mandatory sobriety to it. So you can come in and then get sober, but you have to stay sober to be in fish and to move out of that. That's not in this because someone said it was racist to require that. And I don't understand how racist is drug addiction and racism are two separate issues. And we're trying to cure one to get people off the street. So if we don't require sobriety or drug-free to stay in the program, we're just throwing good money after bad. We need to have some requirement like that, because otherwise, why bother? We're just creating a hotel for homeless. You know, that will just keep repeating and repeating itself, and there's no end state for the program that people are in there. So we need to have goals, smart goals. Otherwise, we're just throwing money down the toilet, and we're just saying, hey, come on down to Carson. You know, we got all these benefits. We got a Cadillac program here. So again, are we going to, you know, sell our residents down the toilet? Or are we going to create something that's actually going to be useful? And again, every time I've seen government get involved in something, it's a boondoggle, and it doesn't work. I think we should find a way to let the nonprofits take care of this and deal with this, so it's not the city's responsibility. The city can assist, but it is not the city's responsibility to go there or do this. I just think that you know, if you really have to think this through, it will come back to bite seriously if you do not. Thank you much, Richard.
Thank you. So, thank you. And the city is not building a shelter. I need to clarify on the record. I don't know how that message is out there, but it's not true. Mr. Adler.
Will Adler, for the record, Silver State Government Relations with GTI. I was, you know, up here and just maybe with a comment and maybe a point of clarification. I did hear from several members of council, including Member Giomi, that the desire to have a change in cannabis zoning is out there, that they should look at this directly. Is that something that we should be applying a direct petition for, or, you know, a change of the zoning ourselves to? Because there's a very limited time window here, and I do wonder the accessibility of getting to an actual property is of question now before February today, let alone perfecting it, because the amount of time it takes to even get into real estate transactions, let alone identify one. So maybe a more direct ask of, you know, is council's opinion today to change the zoning, or should we petition that directly? Was maybe my intent of this comment. Thank you.
Thanks. We can't answer that. Sorry, it's not agendized. We can't answer that. Sorry. Denny, go ahead. Sorry.
Supervisors, Mayor, I can't tell you, I can't express my grief right now. And it's not because I didn't vote and I don't have a say in who the supervisor of the ward that I live in is. But you all have to, somehow I feel you've let me down. But more importantly, I think the lack of people here is suggesting you've let the community down. If there's nothing firm, like you said, you've got to have something firm, whether it's a number that you voted for, a statement that you've made that you've determined together with, that would be that if nothing is firm, why do we bother to vote? Why should people bother to come here and make comments? Because they have a right to say what they want, and you don't count it by 4 people here today for or 4 against. Ballot is a very firm statement of agreed upon, carry on. And that hasn't happened. And I'm very disappointed in that. I will pick myself up because I think that the process is, like you've suggested, Supervisor Gomi, the marijuana matter and then other matters are all experiments. We don't know what's going to happen. We have to relate as things happen. And I think that's a good thought. I also would like to just really thank everybody that did come out for and against. I think my main stand wasn't to count those heads. And you say it's past tense, the horse is out of the barn. Well, if you did that with the Constitution, or if you did that with the amount of years that we have depended on social voting at ballots, counting and meaning something, you all just trashed 200-something years, in my mind. And that doesn't go away. I mean, I appreciate that you voted the way you voted and that you vote the way you do, but you as a board are here because of a vote. The people put you here based on a vote. Would you want that not to be set for your 4-year term? Would you want to be off balance unless there was something atrocious that you did and we threw you out? What's going to stand, what's going to stay, what's going to be firm, and what isn't needs to be understood by the public, or they're not going to come. There's no reason. You can make comments because it makes you feel better, and you can listen, and we feel it, but your actions should not take away from what is firm. Some things have to be adjusted, but not ballot votes. I don't think that's your job. And I would like to make a suggestion that there be well, that will have to come another time. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other public comment?
Heather Coe. And I would want to start with congratulating and giving kudos to Douglas and Lyon County for putting their residents first, for caring enough about their welfare and their safety not to sign on to a homeless pod shelter project. $1.1 million. That is ridiculous when it could go to fish. It could go to several other places that do this for a living. This is what they do. You have no rules, no regulations, no nothing. There are signs for people to be hired everywhere, at every restaurant, every gas station, but there's no rules, regulations, requirements for any of that. It will be a free-for-all. It will be free healthcare, free mental care, transportation. Oh, we could buy everyone a home for that. This is a joke, and we will end up being a dumpster fire, just like Reno, which has more and more homeless every single day. Crime is up. It'll be like Seattle, San Francisco. So I can't imagine wanting to intentionally destroy Carson City, its history, its charm, and its beauty. It is a nice place for people to live, and you will completely destroy it. And I'd like to know why. I mean, why can't you do something like fish it? Why can't the money go to someone who's responsible? That is not your job to take on these kind of projects. It is to maintain the safety with police, education, fire. This is not your job. And the fact that you would do this and impose further taxes because there's no way to maintain this, especially if it turns into Reno. So you guys really ought to think about what you're going to do when you destroy Carson City. And if you want to live in a big city with homeless people and crime, big box stores, then move somewhere else and represent people in a big city. But don't destroy a place and a home for 60,000 people that love Carson City. Thank you.
Thank you. Please don't do that. They really think we're building a campus facility.
Good afternoon. My name's Karen Stevens. I've lived here for 28 years and love the historical beauty of this city. And as you can tell, people are really, really worried about these homeless pods because I grew up in Portland and it was beautiful, beautiful city at one time too. Now it's a shithole. And we don't want our city to turn into a shithole. That's so horrific to us. And you mentioned that only 17 people talked against the homeless shelter at the last meeting. There were actually around 60 plus people that sent public comment in that was on the table, and all but one or two of them were against the shelter, but we only mentioned the 17 people. It was 95% of the people talking about the homeless shelter that were against it, but we are not listened to, and we're not going to sit by and let you people ruin our city. I'm telling you that right now. I go door to door talking to people. They are worried too, and they don't like what's happening. Who are you? Are you guys going door to door? Are you sitting saying you're reading an email that says, oh no, we're happy to do that? I want to know if you are in touch with the people, because I don't think you are. And if you fund it, you own it.
Thank you. You're welcome. Do I have any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, we're adjourned. Everybody have a good day.